Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome to 3 hours of random locations in Skyrim. During the course of this video, we'll be exploring just different places throughout Skyrim that you may or may not be aware of. We'll also be discovering some bigger locations, of course, and trying to go over interesting facts, interesting information that you may or may not know. Now, many of my viewers on my Unexplored Skyrim video requested this video. So this video is actually a compilation of my Unexplored Skyrim videos into one big long video. You can use it to learn more about Skyrim, to use it for relaxing or studying, or to use it to go to sleep. Whatever the reason might be, I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome to Unexplored Skyrim. If you're familiar with my Unexplored series in Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3, you know what this video will be like. The goal of this series is to find locations scattered around Skyrim that players might miss on their initial playthrough, and also just looking at normal places that have hidden secrets or just interesting facts about them. So please sit back, relax, and let's go on an adventure together to see what this absolutely beautiful game has to offer.
We can't afford to keep the place running since these attacks started. Pirates, you see, raiding all along the coast. From Hammerfell to Vardenfell, only the Shatter Shields appear safe.
Helgen? I've heard of the man, but never guessed he'd join up with some pirates. This could be even more dangerous than I thought. Head to the ships. We'll plan the assault on the way.
Hello ladies and gentlemen. For the first episode of Unexplored Skyrim, I wanted to visit somewhere I was not familiar with. I did a bit of research and tried to find some interesting locations, and I finally decided to explore Japhet's Folly. This is an island that is pretty much inaccessible except during the quest, Rise in the East. Now, I have played through Skyrim several times. I've played the game pretty extensively, actually, and I'm very familiar with much of the game, but Skyrim is gigantic. So there are many places that I really am unfamiliar with or I just don't remember. However, Japhet's Folly is definitely a place I forgot about. So let's dive into this location. In order to access this location, you need to head to Windhelm. And as you can see from the scenic shot, we are here at the Windhelm docks. This is just southeast of the main gates to Windhelm. And here we can find the East Empire Company. This is a trading company within Skyrim, and upon entering their building here in Windhelm, you'll notice that it is in a very bad state. And here we have Orthus, and you heard him speaking a little bit in the opening of this video. Basically, pirates are raiding his trade ships, and it's caused a lot of disruptions in his company, obviously. And he also tells us that another company, the Shatter Shields, which is a family-run private trading company here in Windhelm, seems to have been unaffected by the pirate raids, and he finds this very suspicious. So he asks us to go steal the ledger of the Shatter Shields. Upon taking the ledger, which is really easy to get since their office is next door to the East Empire Company, and because that the ledger is not locked inside of anything, it's just on a table, we can take it back to Orthus, who will then tell us that there are payments being made to a group of pirates in Dawnstar. So this is obviously quite suspicious, and from here Orthus will task us with traveling to Dawnstar in order to investigate these pirates. And then in Dawnstar, if we head to the Wind Peak Inn, we can find the group of pirates that Orthus was talking about, and they're being very rude to the bartender, or just to the person who runs this inn. And then we can talk to Stig Salt Plank, a very interesting name, no doubt, and he will refuse to give us information about his work, or who he works for, or how to join the pirates. So we can either bribe him with 1,000 gold, or we can beat it out of him. So I chose to beat it out of him. I don't want to give 1,000 gold to a no-good pirate. Pretty easy fight, because on my account that I was using for this video, I'm a very high level.
take my hide for this, but Skyrim's been feeling a bit confining lately. We draw counsel at Japhet's Folly. The fools in Windhelm won't go near it, which is fine by us. If you'll pardon me now, my crew needs gathering. Should be in Hammerfell before the other Horkers know who let slip their secret.
And with that, we now know we need to go to Japhet's Folly. However, going to Japhet's Folly is not an easy task. As he said, it's difficult to reach for people in Windhelm, let alone the player character. Upon returning to the East Empire Company, we can find that Orthis is now in a discussion with Adelasia, who will help us attack Japhet's Folly, and she will provide us with transportation in order to get there. It's very important to note that you have one opportunity to visit this location, because upon finishing this quest, you cannot go back. So please be careful when you visit here, make sure you get all of the loot that you want. And then after talking to this mercenary, we will be transported to Japhet's Folly. Japhet's Folly is a small island in the northeastern part of Skyrim in the middle of the ocean. That is why it is inaccessible and a little bit difficult to find. This quest is easily missed, I think. Adelasia will tell us that we need to kill Helgen, who is a kind of mage that is leading this group of pirates. He is creating this fog around the island, which makes it difficult to travel to and dangerous for ships. Also, using the Clear Skies shout will not clear the skies. We have to kill Helgen. So here you can see the location northeast of Winterhold and the College of Winterhold. Like I said though, you need a boat to get here. Upon arrival, you will have all of these chunks of ice that make it easy for us to travel towards the island. On the island is a small castle, along with several small wooden houses that obviously provide shelter for its inhabitants. Here we can find a conveniently placed sea cave, which will lead us to the base of the castle. Inside of this sea cave, we can find several mud crabs, but, that's a pretty easy enemy to fight off. And obviously, you can complete this quest at any level. However, the quest and enemies will scale depending on the player level. Here we have a chest with random loot. There were some lockpicks and gold and some healing potions inside of it for me, which is pretty good. Then we come to this main room where we can find a Blood Horker. That's this name of the group of pirates. And this is inside of the castle. There were some potions in here, some mead, and then also a treasure chest, again, with random loot. For me, it just had some gold. After this, we can enter the main chamber section of the castle. We come out on the bottom of one of the towers. This castle has 2 towers. There's nothing really at the entrance besides like some random loot. We had some good old tasty carrots inside of that sack. We then have to make our way up the stairs up to the ground level of the tower, and several pirates will come out and try to kill us. But for us, that's no problem at all. Now, unfortunately, the upper section of this tower is collapsed, so there's nothing that we can really do up there. So then we can go into this next part of the castle, or the fort, whatever you want to call it, and we just have a long hallway, which will take us to the exit, which at this point in time is locked, so we cannot go outside, and then it takes us to the other tower. In this other tower, you have 2 choices of where to go. You can go up to the top floor or down into the basement. You probably want to go down first, because after killing Helgen and leaving this place, a lot of the loot becomes inaccessible. So definitely make sure to get all of the loot that you want before killing Helgen. And then we can find some gold coins, and a coin purse, which is not very helpful maybe, but it's better than nothing. In this large room at the bottom, we don't have anything besides some food and also a locked chest that will have random loot inside of it. Then we have an expert locked wooden door, and upon opening the door, we can find Japhet. And he is the reason this place is called Japhet's Folly. And his journal gives us a very interesting look at what was happening at Japhet's Folly and why it might be haunted. And his journal reads, "A smaller band than was expected joined me departing Dawnstar. Apparently the local word is that this island is unfit for any sort of habitation, owing to spirits and ill-favored weather. No matter, more space for the loyal few, though the building of the citadel may prove to be time-consuming. This first winter was difficult, with the abandonment of many men and women to return to their families on the mainland. A culling of the herd. Let us lose the faithless, the weak, and those who lack the fortitude to preserve. The stories of ghosts inhabiting this place are just stories. They frighten away more of those who would weep like children when their shadows flicker in the firelight. Me and my closest remain, ever vigilant. I find little need for additional company. The cold and wind seem to finally have driven off the last of those who would fancy themselves to be my compatriots. I have no need of their adolescence. Let those who look upon Japhet's fortress be afraid, and know the great man who conquered the accursed island. Now, even my more trusted go-betweens have stopped making their regular deliveries of food and supplies to the fortress. I must become self-sufficient and farm the land, as my father did. The rocks are unyielding, and my grain grows short, but I will not abandon my greatest creation. I will weather the storm and fend off the ghost and bite into the wind, such that all might sing songs of my great settlement. I'm starting to think the stories of the ghosts may have a kernel of truth to them, or else it's simply the hunger talking. The ghosts are speaking to me now. The more of this ice moss that I eat, the more clearly I can hear them. They are telling me it was a mistake to come here, as if I didn't already know that. Oh gods, help me. And with that, we can learn a lot about this fortress and this settlement, and the man who established it. A man who was obviously not very smart, and who seems to have gone crazy towards the end of his life. Behind Japhet, we can find a master-locked chest, which has a flawed Varla stone in it, gold, and other random loot. So a pretty good find. Now, Japhet is a very interesting story. Now, there's no evidence that there are any ghosts on the island. Perhaps it really is haunted and Helgen was able to scare away the ghost, or perhaps he was just going crazy from hunger and eating the ice moss. Either way, we have a more important task to focus on. We have to kill Helgen, who sits at the top of this tower. And here we can see Helgen now, who is a mage, obviously, as he's producing this fog and storm that surrounds Japhet's Folly. And we can then kill him pretty easily. And after this, we want to take his key, and you could also take his armor if you wanted it. Now, up here on the top, there isn't a whole lot of loot. There were some silver ingots, which you might want for smithing or something. Also some soul gems, as is pretty common loot in Skyrim, along with a potion of healing. There's also a chest which had some gold, some arrows, and some madness ore. So not terrible finds, but nothing spectacular either. Upon exiting this fortress, we will be shown a pretty amazing scene as the mercenaries from the East Empire Company have began their attack on the island. As we open the door, we can see some pirates getting blown to smithereens, and there will be a lot of explosions as you make your way down. Now, while you're here, don't try to fast travel or try to leave or anything, as it can severely glitch the game. I've heard of actually game-breaking glitches at this location, so just go about your way, kill the pirates, and just, enjoy the awesome scene. Now, you can explore around the island and stuff, that's okay, just don't try to get too cute with anything. And as we make our way down, we'll see another pirate get blown to smithereens, and then we'll kill off the stragglers. This last pirate's death was pretty humorous, as I fusrodad him into the frozen ocean. Bye-bye. But after killing all of the pirates, we can head over to Adelasia, and she can take us back to Windhelm. However, I wasn't quite ready to go back yet, because I just wanted to check out the island and see if I could find anything cool, or just some kind of hidden areas. Here on Unexplored, I like to do some extra exploration, try to find places that players typically wouldn't look at or typically care about, and just kind of look at like some cool liminal spaces, or just spaces that the developers built for whatever reason. I just think it adds a lot of character to the game, and it just feels really cool to be in these kind of places. So over here we have a boat that is kind of sinking, obviously damaged in the battle. However, there's nothing really on the boat. And then making my way up towards the fortress, we will find a chest that had a diamond in it, so a really good find, and some other random loot in these destroyed houses. At the top, I wanted to see if you could get on top of the fortress through kind of just jumping around, and I found out, yes, you can indeed get on top of the fortress. You just kind of have to jump on top of the doorway here, and this will put you on the ledge, and eventually you can kind of just force your way up by walking. And then we are at the top of the fortress, but there's really nothing to do up here. There's really no point. Besides, I thought it looked cool, and you get some cool views of the surrounding area. After Helgen is dead, also you'll notice that the weather here has improved significantly. And with that, I concluded my time at Japhet's Folly, and decided to return to Windhelm. After we return to Windhelm, we can go talk to Orthus, who has a reward for us, and his reward is based on the level of the player character. So lower levels will receive less gold, while higher levels will receive more gold. I'm a level 82, and I received 1,500 gold. So not bad, but had I given the bribe to that pirate, I would be actually quite sad, because then I only made 500 gold. And there you have it, Japhet's Folly. This is a really cool location that I really did not know ever existed until recently. Skyrim is an absolutely huge game, and I'm really looking forward to this series because I do like playing Skyrim a lot, and I look forward to finding places I've never been before. Now, for this series, I plan to do two things. One, I'm going to use my old account, like I did in this video, in order to reach more higher level places, but also I plan to restart my playthrough of Skyrim, or create a second playthrough, in order to experience other locations on Unexplored Skyrim for, like, the first time, or show what a first-time experience is like. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you have any recommendations for a future video in Skyrim, please post them in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are so freaking awesome, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Mara's Eye Pond. And this location was recommended to me by random MFer K6W. I know what you're trying to say there, but for now, I'm just going to keep it family friendly. But I am really happy that this was recommended to me because I had a lot of fun checking out this location, and it's a place I never knew existed. So let's dive into it. And here on the minimap, you can see the location of Mara's Eye Pond, just southwest of Windhelm and east of Gallows Rock. Now, as you approach the location, you're going to see just a small pond, bit of a snowy area with a little island in the middle. There are some mud crabs on the island, but they're pretty easy to take out. Little did I know a simple Fusroda would kill them all, and one of them disintegrated, I am guessing because their body kind of glitched out, and usually when that happens in Skyrim, the body just turns to dust. And on this center island, we have this small boat, a lantern, and a trap door, which leads us to Mara's Eye Den. And inside this den, we have an underground cavern that is obviously beneath the pond. It's kind of a bit scary. And then we have some vampires inside of this den, so we have to go ahead and kill them. I didn't realize the skeleton would fall apart, and so I kind of wasted my time on that. And then the other vampire went flying with a simple hit. And after that, I found out there was a dead smuggler near a fire, along with some logs. I always found it interesting how in Skyrim there's going to be fires in caves, but that is very unsafe. But ignoring physics, we have a table with various gold, some minerals, a bag of gold, and most importantly, a journal on it. This journal is from the dead smuggler that we found, and we can learn about this cave. The journal reads, "This war isn't as good for business as I thought it would be. Sure, the pay is good, but the runs are harder with all the extra soldiers on the roads, and finding jobs that are worth the risk is difficult. Like our current job, guys hire us to move a bunch of crates with few questions asked. So we get the goods here, and I take a look in the boxes, just to know what I've gotten myself into. And what do I find? Bodies. That bastard had me moving bodies. Well, I stripped them of their jewels and gold, so the joke's on them." So we can see that this smuggler was trying to profit off of the Civil War in Skyrim, but he took a job from a vampire, and it ended, well, badly. And then in the middle of the room, we can find some crates, and on top of the crates is a box that contains a common soul gem, along with a guide to better thieving. This will increase our lockpick by 1, unless you're already at 100 like I am. Very unfortunate. Over here, we can find a locked chest, and upon opening the chest, we will have some random loot. There's a potion of magic, and some gold in it for me. In the mouth of this statue, we can find a coin purse, which I thought was really cool since this den did belong to a smuggler. And like all of the golden stuff we found on the table earlier makes a lot of sense, since it belonged to a smuggler, and obviously the jewelry came from, well, we can assume, dead bodies. In the water, we can find a chest which had a diamond necklace and some gold for me. Then we have 2 cages, one of which is unlocked, and there's a dead vigilant inside with random loot. Next to this cage is a skilled lock. That for me was a master lock because I have 100 lockpick, but it's skilled, but there's nothing inside. So you don't really need to open it unless you're just trying to get some XP. Back outside of the den, we can find this cart and crates next to the pond. We can assume this was used by the smuggler. Also, there's a clay deposit along the west banks of the pond. As noted on the wiki, this pond has a very fast current for whatever reason. This is not typical of ponds in Skyrim. Then to the southeast, we can find an unmarked pond that has a shrine to Talos. Along the banks of the river, we can find a chest next to some very beautiful flowers with random loot. We can maybe assume this was used for like donations or something. And then we have the Shrine to Talos, which had the book 2090-20 Mid-Year Volume 6, that's a mouthful, which actually increases our heavy armor by 1, which was really good for me because my heavy armor on this playthrough is very high. So I just thought it was a cool location, and I have no clue when else I would talk about it, so here it is, next to Mara's Eye Pond. And real quick, I wanted to mention that Mara's Eye Pond is most likely named after Mara, which is a goddess in Skyrim, specifically the goddess of love. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Unexplored Skyrim, and thank you guys so much for the support of the first episode. It's been amazing. If you have any recommendations for the next location or anywhere you want to see featured in this series in Skyrim, please post it in the comments section below. And as always, until next time.
Good. This is Skyrim, and we should honor the old ways. These foreigners don't even respect their own gods, much less Kyne and her sacred trials. It's an old Nord tradition, a test to prove your worth in the eyes of Kyne. Show that you're a hunter and no simple butcher. Kyne teaches us to respect the beasts and blesses the hunter who will face their champions. True Nord hunters are those who survive the trials. You think you're strong enough for Kyne's blessing? I would be glad to pass this tradition down. You must defeat guardian beasts blessed by Kyne. I will anoint you with the symbol of the wolf, the crab, and the skeever. This will compel the Guardian to appear when you reach his lair.
Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Froki's Shack. This is an absolutely awesome location that was recommended to me by John from the West and John McMillian. So many Johns here, my name is also John. So maybe we should rename Froki's Shack to John's Shack. I don't know. But anyways, let's check out this absolutely awesome location and the associated quest, Kyne's Sacred Trials. And here on the map, you can see the location of Froki's Shack, located southeast of Ivarstead and southwest of Riften, located in the Rift. Kind of a tucked away location, hidden in the mountains of the Rift. It's kind of a hard location to reach, and there's no real indication that you should go over here. So you have to make your way up this small hill or up this mountain. There is tons of wildlife, tons of nature, just absolutely beautiful here. This shot was used in the opening of the game, and we just have a small shack. Inside, we will find Froki along with his grandson, Hamming. And they live in this shack together, despite the fact there's only one bed. And in the opening, you heard Froki's opening monologue. And basically, he's going to send you on a quest to kill some spiritual animals in honor of Kyne. So the first location we're going to visit in order to kill these spirits is northeast of Falkreath, just kind of in this open area next to a mountain, and we will find the wolf guardian spirit. Me and my horse were able to easily kill the spirit, and we can move on to the next monster. And while I kill this troll that followed me, some extra information on Kine, she is also known as the Mother of Men or the Mother of Nords, and she is the Nordic goddess of storm. And our next location is just southeast of Rorikstead in this large open field, and we can find a giant mud crab spirit, and we can also see the body of the giant mud crab in this small pond. So I assume that the spirit is the ghost or just the spirit of that dead giant mud crab. Pretty easy to kill though. And our next location is just southwest of Dawnstar, and it is a spirit skeever. Pretty freaking awesome, but skeevers are pretty freaking easy to kill in this game. And there was another skeever, and then we easily took out these first 3 enemies. On the way back, I just kind of admired the beauty at Froki's shack, and we can report to Froki of our accomplishment in killing the first 3 beasts or animals or monsters or, whatever the hell you want to call them, and he'll give us 3 more beasts to kill. So next we have to kill a spirit bear located northwest of Falkreath, and again, this bear will be kind of easy to kill like some of the other animals. I Fusrodad him and he almost fell off the cliff. Unfortunately, he didn't. That would have been frickin' epic. And also worth noting is that this bear is located right next to Twilight Sepulchre, which is an absolutely beautiful place. I know it's a part of the quest, Darkness Returns, a part of the Thieves Guild quest line. However, I was just never really realized how beautiful it is, so I just kind of admired the beauty, and I've yet to complete that quest line on this save. And our next location is Loria's Farm, and it's right next to Loria's Farm to the west. And as I approached, the spirit mammoth spawned, and I was able to kill it pretty easily. My weapons at this point in the game are pretty overpowered. And next we want to go up towards Winterhold, just southeast of Winterhold and northwest of Southfringe Sanctum. I actually kind of messed up here. I went to the high ground only to find out that the spirit is below me. So I kind of had to finagle my way down this cliffside, something that I'm actually used to after playing Fallout New Vegas so much and messing around with the Colorado River. And we can find the next spirit, and I got attacked by a wolf from behind. And after killing the saber cat spirit, we can return to Froki, who will give us our next objective. And the final spirit that we have to kill is a spirit troll located at Greywater Watch, which is a cave really close to Whiterun. So I actually discovered this cave a long time ago probably, but as you can see it's directly east of Whiterun. But no worries if you've already visited the cave, it does not affect the quest at all. Everything inside of the cave will respawn after starting this quest, so we will have to fight all of the trolls inside of the cave once again, and also there will be a spirit troll this time. Here is me really just messing up, not being able to hit anything. This troll over here is taking a nap. There's another troll attacking me from behind. I one-hit him somehow, and I finally finished off the spirit troll in spectacular dramatic fashion. After that, we can return to Froki, but there is some noteworthy loot inside of this cave. First is a knapsack, which has random loot in it, which for me had a healing potion, and then there's 2 bandits, indicating this cave used to belong to bandits. On top of this barrel, we can find a copy of Vernacus and Borler, which is a skill book that will improve our archery skill, along with Froki's bow on the barrel next to that one, which is an enchanted bow which damages stamina. Now, also worth mentioning with Froki's bow, if you come to the cave before the quest, you can actually take Froki's bow, and then you can start the quest again, and you can get 2 copies of Froki's bow, because as I said earlier in the video, upon starting the quest, Kind Sacred Trials, everything in this cave will respawn, so you can get 2 copies of Froki's bow, which is supposed to be a unique item. Just kind of a cool side note. But besides that, upon returning to Froki's shack, we can go inside, talk to Froki. We can offer to give back his bow, but he will just tell us to keep it, and then we can complete the quest. And as a reward, we will get Kind's token for completing the quest. And I have to say, this was an absolutely awesome quest that I had no knowledge of before I started making these videos, so huge shout out to everyone who recommended this location. Now, before ending the video, I also want to check out the area around Froki's shack, because there are some interesting things and things of note. So back outside, if we go just below the shack, we can find a bird's nest, which is really not that interesting, but below the bird's nest is a ore vein, and on this ore vein we can actually find a diamond. So a pretty good find. There's also a chopping block over here where they're obviously chopping wood, where we can find a diadem, which is worth a lot of money, especially if you're a newer character. And then if we head up this hill, as John McMillian noted in his comment, we can find a Shrine of Talos. And at this shrine, there is some very interesting loot indeed. We can find only one of 3 closed Imperial helmets. This is located at this Shrine of Talos, which is pretty freaking cool. And as you just saw, there is a copy of the King, which will raise our 2-handed skill by 1. So pretty freaking cool. And then below we can see the Nordic ruins that were mentioned by John McMillian. So that might be a location for another day. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. I had a lot of fun checking out Froki's shack. So thank you so much for those who recommended it. It was really fun, and it's a thing I never knew about in Skyrim. So I really love this kind of stuff. If you guys have any recommendations for a future video, please post them in the comments section below. You guys are so freaking awesome for watching and supporting this channel. Just wanted to say a huge shout out and a huge thank you to everyone who watches. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Lost Valley Redoubt, along with Bard's Leap Summit. We have to pass through Lost Valley Redoubt in order to reach Bard's Leap Summit. And this location was recommended to me by Vaporeon General. Thank you so much, Vaporeon, for all of your support. You've been really awesome, and thank you so much for watching all of these videos. Now, I have to give a huge shout out to everyone who has recommended locations in Skyrim so far. All of these locations have been absolutely amazing. I mean, the amount of care and love and effort that Bethesda put into Skyrim is clearly evident. All of these locations I didn't know about before this series, and they've all been super detailed and a lot of fun to play through. So let's waste no more time and let's check out Bard's Leap Summit. And here you can see the location of Bard's Leap Summit. I started at Fort Sunguard and approached from the northeast, but that might have been a mistake. It might be better to come from Markarth. This location is kind of in between Markarth and Falkreath. Now, as I approached, there was this small valley, and there was a saber cat in the valley that I had to kill. After this, I made my way up this very steep hill, and at the top there was this awesome kind of looking tree, and there was also a bear up here that was kindly waiting for me, but this bear kind of died a funny death as I Fusrodawed him over this little small edge, and as I came over the edge, he just died. Bleh! But besides for some funny deaths, you can get some very beautiful views. Unfortunately, it was a bit foggy, the weather, when I was here, but earlier in the video you could actually see Bard's Leap from far away, and it is so beautiful. And as you can see, as we got near, we discovered Lost Valley Redoubt. And inside of this location, there's going to be a ton of Forsworn. There's also these small aqueducts running all about this place, which I thought was freaking awesome. I don't know why, I think aqueducts are so cool, but I love their fact they're in Skyrim. Then in the middle of this combat, this poor goat ran in front of me as I was trying to hit the Forsworn. Really bad decision by that goat, and I accidentally murdered him. Then I fought all of the Forsworn. This one mage gave me a lot of trouble. He almost killed me. So this was one of the most difficult fights, or probably the most difficult fight I have faced in this series so far. So I'm glad this location was more challenging than some of the other locations I've been to so far. But still, wiping out all of the Forsworn in this main camp was not so much of an issue. And of course, after killing the Forsworn, you can kind of look around and try and find some loot. However, I was not able to find anything really of interest. There are some chests and stuff, and there's also a blacksmith where you could craft weapons, of course. Don't really know why you would use it way out here, but it is there. as kind of more decoration, and yeah, but besides that, not a lot else. We have some food, we have some mead, but not a whole lot, at least in this main camp. Now, real quick, I wanted to go to the lower camp and clear out any stragglers down there, and this is at the bottom of Bard's Leap, and it is very beautiful. Down here you have the huge waterfall, and of course the leap above you. But there was a single Forsworn down here, so I murdered him pretty violently, and that was that. And then there were 2 treasure chests down here, so I decided to go ahead and loot those, but there wasn't anything immaculate in them, just some gold and potions. And there's also some more aqueducts, and I will talk about these aqueducts a bit later in the video. And as you saw, there was another chest hidden inside of that hut. After that, we can make our way up to the top of Bard's Leap Summit, and there's going to be some goodies along the way, like soul gems and just some mead, and then we have a long staircase to climb up. Of course, we'll fast forward, and then we can see the main river here with some blood on the path. Now, we can go left or right here. Both ways are of interest to the player. But first I wanted to go right to get a look at this freaking amazing view. I have actually been really stunned at how beautiful Skyrim is, considering this game is almost 15 years old, but it is so freaking beautiful. But I wasn't ready to jump yet, but we do want to jump. We're not suicidal, but that is our goal, is to jump off. If we go left, we can find 2 Hogravens having a ritual in order to kind of summon this Forsworn, and there's also a word wall, which contains a word for the shout, become ethereal, and that, of course, is really good. Always good to get some shouts, and also we have to kill all the Hogravens. Now, I was reading on the wiki that if you manage to kill the Hogravens before they finish their ritual, then the Forsworn will die. But if you just interrupt the ceremony like I did and don't manage to kill them, the Forsworn will be revived no matter what. But it doesn't matter, just some more X-Pizzles for me. And then there's also a chest that had a lot of gold and some spell tomes inside of it. And a pendant. After that, I was ready to complete my leap of faith, so we made the jump off of the top of Bard's Leap Summit, and then we can see why it got its name.
Been a long time since someone took me. Longer still, since any survived. I once performed the entirety of the Poetic Edda from atop Bard's Leap before trying mine. Well, you can see how that turned out.
And so we can see how Bard's Leap Summit got its name from Azadel here. Now, Azadel mentions he'll perform the entirety of the Poetic Edda. And the real-life Poetic Edda, yes, it is real, is a collection of Old Norse poems, which are very important because they help preserve a lot of Norse mythology after the spread of Christianity into Scandinavian territories. So a pretty cool real-life connection here in Skyrim. Of course, on Unexplored, we like to see real-life connections, but they're not as common, of course, because it's a fantasy world. And also, if you didn't notice, Azadel will increase our speech by 1 after completing the jump, so very kind of him. I wanted to go back up to the top because I saw this tower off in the distance after passing Bard's Leap Summit, and the name of the tower is Cradlestone Tower. This is a pretty insignificant or small location, but I decided to go ahead and check it out and see what's inside because I just don't know what other opportunity I would ever have to talk about it. Inside, we can find a locked chest at the very bottom of the tower that will contain random loot. It had a good amount of gold. Then on the second floor here, we can find a Hagraven who was doing some kind of weird ritual. Now, apparently there is a skill book, Sithis, which will increase our alteration skill. However, I couldn't find it in this building. Apparently it's next to the troll skull. I did check next to the troll skull, and I couldn't find it. Now, also on the wiki, it said you have to start Dark Brotherhood in order to find it. I did indeed start Dark Brotherhood, or I finished it, so maybe that's why it's not there. I completed the quest, maybe, not sure. But anyways, be on the lookout for a skill book if you visit this location. Now, below the tower, there is a small pond. As I wanted to mention, I really like these kind of locations. Why is there a small pond here? who built this small pond in the middle of nowhere on this random ass mountain below this random ass tower. Don't know if anyone has ever paid it any attention, but I decided to give it a little bit of attention. Small pond, you have your moment. Now I also wanted to mention these small aqueducts that come off of Bard's Leap Summit. They're just small aqueducts that actually lead to the river, and as you can see, that one off in the distance is much shorter, and then this one falls off right here. Now below us, the river is actually named. It is called the Karth River, and it is a pretty major river within Skyrim. And we can kind of see where the river begins up here, where we have a lot of these aqueducts. Now, I don't know what function those aqueducts would actually serve, but hey, they're there. Also, at the bottom here, there's a small island with a treasure chest in the middle. And then we're left with a very gorgeous scene. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. I had a ton of fun making this video and just kind of exploring around this area. All of the different moving parts in this area was really cool, so a big shout out to Vaporeon General for recommending this location. If you guys have any other recommendations for future locations in Skyrim to be featured in this series, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Now, in my previous video, I mentioned I'm going to start a new save to kind of explore Skyrim more and visit other locations, while also using my more experienced account. So, for this video, I decided we would go ahead and do Helgen. Now, Helgen is the starting city that you have to go to. I was going to see if there's anything interesting when exploring or during the Alduran attack. However, I couldn't find anything, and I can't really add much to the beginning of this game. It's been done hundreds of thousands of times at this point, so I'm just not going to really go so much into it. But I decided to go ahead and talk about my character for this unexplored playthrough. Now, I chose to play as a Khajiit because mainly I've never actually played as a Khajiit, and also they kind of resemble an otter. Obviously, they're more of a cat, but otters and cats have a lot of similarities, so I decided to go with this, and his name is John H. Otter, which is the name I use in many role-playing games. But after that, we can just kind of continue through the main quest. Now, I did try to explore and try to find unique things during the opening sequence of Skyrim. However, I was unable to find anything really significant or anything of note that hasn't been covered thousands of times before. During the opening sequence, it is nearly damn impossible to actually die from Alduin, even though he's like the World Eater, and you just kind of just go through the tutorial like you always would. Now, I kind of try to roleplay my actual role as a Khajiit, so I initially have decided to go with the Stormcloaks. However, I'll probably end up siding with the Imperials for many reasons, but anyways, I won't get into that now, but we'll go ahead and fast forward through this, and we will return to Helgen to see what awaits us. Now, for this video, I wanted to compare Helgen right after the dragon attack, and then look at it at a significant period of time after the dragon attack. So if you return to Helgen right after the dragon attack, you're going to find a lot of fires still going, along with some charred bodies that are laying around. So that's a pretty cool effect, that the fire is still going, there's still a lot of destruction. The game just doesn't have a default setting once you finish like the tutorial area. And you can kind of navigate your way through the town. However, there's nothing of notable loot at this point in the game. But some things to note for now: this gate is not locked, it's just a normal gate. And as we make our way through the town, we can just find a lot of fires that are burning, along with some barrels. Now, inside of the inn, this is where things will mostly change when we visit later. Right now, there's really no notable loot. There's some barrels and stuff laying around with like food. And there's also a bed. However, we cannot sleep in the bed because it is considered owned for whatever reason. Then outside, we can see the execution area and the tower where Alduin attacks. Now, moving over to my account, that is a higher level. When we approach Helgen this time, the gate is locked, an apprentice level lock, and upon opening the gate, we're going to find a couple of bandits that will happily greet us. So we can see that Helgen has not been restored by the Empire or by the Stormcloaks, and I kicked that guy through the frickin' planet. That's pretty frickin' sweet. But like I was saying, Helgen has obviously not been rebuilt by anyone, and now it's just occupied by some bandits. And you can kind of go through the ruins, and most notable is some of the charred bodies are missing, and a lot of the fires have been, put out, which obviously makes sense because it's been a long time on this playthrough since I've been to Helgen. So some really cool environmental changes happening here in Helgen, and just the fact that the town has now been taken over by bandits is pretty cool. And as we make our way over towards the inn inside of Helgen, we can find a lot more loot than we could before. As you could just see on that one table, there was a coin purse and some potions. Also, the bed is no longer owned for whatever reason. So I found that to be a little bit interesting. So for whatever reason, that bed went from owned to unowned. And at the top of the tower, which is now accessible, we can find a bandit along with a chest next to him. And opening the chest, we can find some random loot. I just found some gold and a circlet. So not a whole lot of amazing loot, but I just thought it was pretty cool. Now the loot that is the most notable is if we go to the second floor of the inn, we can find mead with juniper berries. This is a reference to the beginning of the game. As you enter Helgen, Roloff mentions that he used to have a crush on a girl that made mead mixed with juniper berries, and now we can see the maid is still here.
This is Helgen. I used to be sweet on a girl from here. Wonder if Elod is still making that mead with juniper berries mixed in.
So a pretty cool little reference, but besides that, not much has changed. Now from here I decided to go south and explore 2 locations, using my new account, kind of just showcasing where I go at the beginning of the game. I thought it would be pretty cool to use Unexplored Skyrim to kind of document my journey across Skyrim. So the next location is Fort Newgrad, and as you saw on the minimap earlier, this is a location to the southeast of Helgen. Now, when you first come here, there's going to be a lot of bandits here, as you can see me having to fight them off, but not actually that difficult even for a newer character, and just taking their loot for good measure. Now, I cleared out the outside of the fort, and this is a pretty typical Skyrim fort. However, something to note is that later in the game, the fort can either be occupied by the Legion or the Stormcloaks, and the blacksmith area will be cleaned up. Obviously, depending on the course of the Civil War, you will either have rescue from Fort Newgrad, where you have to free Stormcloak prisoners, or the battle for Fort Newgrad, where the Dragonborn must aid the Legion in reclaiming the fort. And right now, as you can see, we're in the prisoner part of the fort, and as we make our way down, we can just find some pretty minor loot. However, as we get to the very bottom of this section, there is a small cave with a lake, and there is something of interest in the small, I guess not lake, but a small pond. And if we go down to the left, as you can see here, we can find a treasure chest that is an adept lock, and by picking the lock, we can find some random loot. And from here, we can simply just swim out of the cave through a small entrance, and this takes us outside of the fort. Obviously, this is supposed to be used during one of the quests, probably rescuing Stormcloak soldiers, as an alternate entrance to make the quest a little bit easier and a little bit more engaging. Pretty cool that they have a secret underwater entrance to the fort. And this small lake sits just below the fortress itself, and it is a very beautiful and peaceful scene. We also have this small dock and a rowboat that is tied to the dock. So pretty cool area, really nice environment, and is very beautiful. Now, going to the main part of the fort, we can actually find a lot of things of interest. So obviously, as we enter the fort, we're going to encounter several bandits in this kind of like lunch hall or mess hall area that would typically be used by troops, but we can see these bandits are enjoying the meal that was left behind, or something maybe they cooked. As we make our way through the fort, a lot of interesting stuff is on the second floor. As you can see, I just entered the second floor here. On my right, we can find like the barracks with several beds and a sleeping bandit that we kill. Inside of this room, there is a chest that we can loot, which contains random loot. But besides that, not a whole lot inside of the barracks, but definitely worth a look. However, in the next room, as you can see this wooden door, we can find a ladder. And you definitely want to climb up this ladder because on the top we can find a chest. And by opening the chest, we can find a treasure map for a treasure that is located nearby. And there you can see the Fort Newgrad treasure map. And this treasure is located just on the northern side of the small lake. It's actually really easy to find if you use the map like you can see here. Back inside the fort and continuing along the second floor, we can find the bandit chief, who is a bit of a hard fight inside of this room. So definitely take him out, you kind of just back off like I do, and he's actually not too difficult, just don't want him to get a hit in on our character, and it's actually pretty easy. Now on the chief there will be a key to the library which you'll want to pick up. However, the library can be unlocked without the key, so it's not necessary to continue on. Now on the bandit chief we can find his journal, and the journal is a bit interesting for us because he talks about the dragon attack at Helgen allowed the bandits to take control of the fort. Of course, for my character, the dragon attack on Helgen literally just happened. We walked straight to this fort from Helgen, so it doesn't really make sense time-wise. Obviously, just the way the game was set up, the developers did not expect players to go straight to Fort Newgrad from Helgen, but I just thought it was a bit funny. And inside of this room, we can find a chest with a scroll of Blizzard that is worth a lot of caps, along with a necklace. And besides that, though, in this room, there is not a whole lot, so we can keep on going. Also, there's a library key on the dresser. Heading back downstairs, we can go to the mess hall, and we can find the door to the library. Inside, we're going to find Brandish, who is a mage that is pretty high level, but we're able to kill him quite brutally. And by looting him, we can find some pretty minor loot, just some gold and potions. Now, inside of this room, there is a lot of interest. Mainly two things. One is an expert locked chest that took me way too long than I care to admit to open. So, you know, if you have low lockpick like I do, be patient and eventually it will pop open. And then you can take all of the goodies that it contains, which for me was a couple of amulets, potions, and a stone. Then over on this table we can also find a book that will increase our light armor. So pretty good find for a low level such as myself. And then going to go look for the treasure, we head to the eastern part of the lake. Earlier I said north, that is incorrect. Eastern part of the lake. And we just go up this little hill and we can find the treasure chest behind these rocks, which will contain some random loot that is, at least for me as a new character, pretty darn good. Now, before ending the video, I decided to continue even further south because I didn't really know where this path led. So I wanted to see where it went all the way. And eventually I found a random NPC, Mike the Liar, who is a recurring source of misinformation within the Elder Scrolls series. He has been featured in Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and Elder Scrolls Online. It is a bit of an Easter egg to provide different commentaries about the Elder Scrolls series. So I was very happy to find him along my journey and to feature him in Unexplored Skyrim. I then continued my way further south where I finally encountered a fortress called Bloodlit Throne. Didn't really know what to expect upon entering the fort. However, I thought it might be vampires, and it was vampires. Now, as I came into this main room, I was very surprised by this gargoyle. Now, this gargoyle fight proved to be very difficult because I was a very low level at this point in the game. As you can see, I'm just a level 1 actually, which is pretty wild. I almost died, but I used some potions and I was able to finally to defeat the gargoyle. Little bit of a stressful and difficult fight, but I had a lot of fun fighting this gargoyle nonetheless. And this did not deter me from continuing my adventure into this fortress. I was actually more intrigued than anything else, and the gargoyle had some pretty decent loot on him. Now, in the main area, this wooden door was blocked, so we can't enter it at this time, and I continued further into the fort where I found more vampires. Now eventually the actual fortress ends and it goes into this icy cavern, and inside of the icy cave we can find a very large central structure. Also interestingly is a lot of the loot in here is considered stealing for whatever reason, even though they're vampires. I guess perhaps it belonged to the old inhabitants of the fortress. But like I was saying, there's this large central area inside of the cave, and there's going to be some vampires in here that we have to kill. And when I say we have to kill, we have to massacre them, because they were really easy to kill. And up on this central platform, we can find a locked cage, and inside the cage we can find a dead Khajiit, which is very sad indeed. We have to obviously avenge our Khajiit brethren. And then there was another frickin' gargoyle, and after a very similar situation, using a lot of potions, I was finally able to kill the gargoyle, just in time as some vampires came up behind me, trying to kill me. But thankfully the vampires inside of this cave were pretty easy to kill. Then we have an alchemy table inside of this room, along with a lot of prison cells, so we want to kill these vampires. Look around, not much as far as loot. There was a wolf inside of a cage, so I killed him, and there's also dead people on the bed. We can assume they were killed by the vampires. And then inside of this locked cell, we have a lot of things of interest. Inside of this chest, we have some pretty decent loot, including some armor and gold. And then over here, we have a skill book, which will increase our illusion by 1. Really good. Coin purse, and then a scroll of blizzard, which you can obviously use, or you can sell it for a lot of money. And there's 2 ways into this cage, but it doesn't matter which way because they both come from the same place. Continuing even further into the cave, we can kind of find a battle arena. We can find the vampire master, and he will release some death hounds into the arena to kill you. But if you're quick, you can just pull the chain and jump up here and begin fighting the vampire master or master vampire early. Now he has a lot of HP and he can drain your health pretty quickly, but using the rest of my potions I was able to kill him along with his minion. Now the death hounds themselves are also a pretty difficult fight, and I used up almost all of my potions in order to kill off everyone inside of this room. So we're kind of back at square one, but at least we have a lot of experience and a lot of loot we can sell further down the line. But after killing the death hounds, there really isn't a whole lot left to do in this room, so we can just leave. Now we can go loot those bandits that are dead on the main area, but they don't really have anything, and as we exit we can find a chest that'll have some okay loot inside of it, and then we can find the barricaded door from earlier in the playthrough. And with that, we completed Bloodlet Throne. Obviously, the throne was held by the Master Vampire. As I look to go south, we can see that this is the limit of the southern part of this path, as it ends on this wall. Alright guys, I had a lot of fun making this video, kind of comparing a location from early game to later game, and seeing some of the differences in the area. Also, exploring the surrounding area was a lot of fun, and we found some pretty interesting locations and a lot of loot that is very helpful to a new player, such as myself. And for the remainder of this series, I will try to primarily use my new account. However, if you guys give me recommendations, I obviously want to go to those locations right away, so I'll probably use my account that is obviously higher level. Alright guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you have recommendations for a future video of Unexplored Skyrim, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Southfringe Sanctum. This is a location on the far southern part of the map, southeast of Helgen, where we visited in our last video. Now this far southern location is very close to the border of Skyrim and Cyrodiil. In fact, there's actually a gate that in theory would allow access to Cyrodiil. However, in Skyrim the game, it's just a gate that blocks the path from going any further. Of course, you cannot travel to Cyrodiil, but we will be checking out that gate as well. And as I said, this location is in the far southern part of the map, just southeast of Helgen, where you start the game. Now, this cave features a lot of spell swords and who are basically necromancers, and as you approach the cave, you will encounter one of those spell swords. And besides the spell sword, outside of the cave, there isn't a whole lot, but there is a table that has some random loot on it, along with an alchemy table, as you can see here, and a satchel that will have random loot. For me, it just had juniper berries. Then, entering the sanctum, I guess it's not a cave, but anyways, entering the sanctum, and we'll find more spell swords. Now, these guys are littered all over the cave, so be ready to fight them. Thankfully, they are pretty darn easy to kill. Now, I'll fast forward here, and eventually you'll find a booby-trapped gate, but if you just launch some kind of projectile, you can destroy the trap. And after this gate, it opens up into this large central chamber, which actually has a lot of vegetation growing and several very tall pine trees. This central room is very beautiful, and here the path splits into two. You can either kind of go straight to an underground section, or you can continue climbing up. I decided to go ahead and kill the spell swords, and then continue up. I think this is the best direction to go, as far as continuity in the quest that is involved in this sanctum. And this central area is so darn beautiful. You have a small opening at the top of the cave, allowing in sunlight and allowing all of these plants to flourish. As we make our way up this central chamber, we'll again find more spell swords and also another gate. However, this gate is locked, so we're going to have to pick the lock in order to continue forward. But it's only a novice lock, so pretty darn easy. And then this part of the cave becomes a bit smaller, and again it opens up into a larger chamber where we will find Bashnog. Bashnog is the kind of leader of the spell swords, and he is the boss of this sanctum. So you're going to have a little bit of a difficult fight, but he really wasn't that difficult. But you definitely want to loot his body because he has some good stuff. Also, there's a chest with some really good stuff inside of it. Obviously, it's probably scaled to your level, but still, for me, it was pretty good. And then on Bashnog, we can find the Art of War Magic, which will increase your destruction spell, or destruction skill by 1. And he has some other interesting loot, so make sure to take that. Now, after killing Bashnog, we have not yet reached the end of the cave, so we have a little bit of a journey to go through. We have to fight some more spell swords, and there's also going to be some spiders that we have to kill. And we're going to find another, large central chamber with a gate, and behind this gate are the spiders. So it appears that the spell swords were using these spiders as a kind of defense system, and they were also using them to torture people, as we'll see here in a second. But we can continue our way down, and then we will find a lady trapped in a web. This is Selvini Nethri, and she was working with Bashnag until Bashnag became interested in her daughter, and she turned against him. So Bashnag had her tied up in this web and left to dead with these spiders. So she is unable to cast any spells, so she asks us to kindly clear the way for her, which includes fighting off some of these spiders, and we can go ahead and continue the rest of the way to make sure we got all of the enemies, which we did. So these spiders were the last enemies, and we will find the exit is that central road back in that very large central chamber we talked about earlier.
I'm too weak right
we
now.
can then go back to Selvini to tell her that the way is clear and that she can escape. This will start the miscellaneous quest, The Savior of Selvini Nethri. Now, unfortunately, it appears that her quest line just kind of ends here. Even after helping her escape the cave, there's no other future encounters with her, which is unfortunate, but a very kind of cool small quest in this sanctum. Now, as I said, I kind of wanted to explore the surrounding area. So if we head north towards Fort Newgrad, which we covered in the previous video, we can find a very beautiful overlook overlooking the fort, and you can get some very beautiful views of the surrounding area. But besides that, there really is nothing of interest down here besides some silver ore deposits in the mountains. Now, if we head further south behind the cave, we can find the border of Skyrim and Cyrodiil. As I said earlier, this is the gate and this is the border. We can see that the border has no guards and that it is not very well protected, so if there was any kind of threat or anybody trying to enter Skyrim, they could do so relatively easily. And here on the minimap, you can see this unmarked location. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. I had a lot of fun making this video and exploring Southfringe Sanctum. It was a really cool location with a kind of hidden quest. If you guys have any recommendations for a future location in Skyrim, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Arcwind Point, and this was recommended to me by Prized Chimp 1097, and I have to say thank you so much for recommending this location. This has been one of my favorite locations to actually play through, if not my most favorite location so far since I started Unexplored Skyrim. This location can be a little bit difficult to reach, however, so I will show you guys the two ways that you can access this location. There's only two paths to get to it, but it is totally worth checking out because there's a lot of high-leveled enemies here and just a very beautiful and very, Elder Scrolls aesthetic location. So let's check out Arcwind Point. So we're going to start our journey here near Valtheim Watchtower. This is also near Froki's shack in the Rift. You can see the location here on the map. This is one of two paths that you can use to reach it. Now, real quick, I thought I'd go ahead and talk about Valtheim Watchtower because I don't know when else I'll really cover this location. I've already defeated the enemies here. I cleared it out God knows how long ago. But we can actually find a word wall here that contains a shout for marked for death. So not bad. Inside, as we make our way up the larger tower of the two towers, there will be a book on the ground. However, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't raise our level. And over on this barrel, there is a satchel that will contain random ingredients for alchemy. And as we reach the top of the tower, we can find the word wall, but as I said, I already collected the word from this location. There is also a leveled chest with random loot, so make sure to check it out, get whatever is inside that piques your interest. And from the top, we can get a very beautiful view of the surrounding area, and you can collect your word. But besides that, not much up here. And then as we move on to the smaller tower, there really isn't much of interest inside of it. On the bottom level, we do have a cooking pot, so if you wanted to cook or make your home here for whatever reason, you easily could. And there's also a leveled blacksmith potion on top of this bookshelf. That's probably the most interesting piece of loot inside of the smaller tower. At the top, we have some beds where you can rest. Now, I would recommend using a horse if you have one. It'll make your journey a lot faster. Now, at the bottom of Valtheim Watchtower, there's actually two paths. There's one that's really rocky that doesn't appear to really be a path, but it actually is, and the one on the left leads to Froki's shack. So you don't want to go to Froki's shack. Instead, you want to take this rocky path on the right and make your way up. As you make your way up, it becomes more clear that this is a path. As we make our way up, we'll find this little shrine. I guess that's what it is. And on this shrine, we will find some potions. I actually found some pretty decent potions along with a dead Draugr. So not bad, but not amazing either, but considering there's no enemies at this location, not a bad find. However, as soon as I started taking off again, I found some trolls. Two of them, in fact, that started chasing after me, and my horse ran in to attack them as well. Maybe I accidentally caught my horse in the crossfire, but he's alright, he's a beast, and I took out the frost trolls without much trouble. Now, if you're a lower level, of course, this might prove to be more difficult, so do be careful. And then over here, we have this burial mound where there is a dead Nord inside hugging this chest. Don't really know what he was thinking, but obviously he thought what was ever in this chest was worth dying for. However, he did in fact die for what appears to be a silver necklace. As we make our way further up, we can find a dragon burial mound. and inside there is a Draugr Deathlord. However, it will be leveled, so if you're a higher level like me, yeah, the Draugr will be a higher level. If you're a lower level, it'll be a bit easier, of course. But for me, he was pretty easy to kill because I just Fusrodawed him into the wall after he tried to Fusrodaw me, and it was pretty simple fight. Now after this fight, you will find the main complex for Arcwind Point, which is a kind of dungeon, but it resembles more of a temple than like a dungeon. But it is very beautiful, and the area surrounding it is actually quite vast, despite its hidden location. I made my way down in the most awkward way possible with my horse, and I wasn't really listening to the music, so little did I realize what was about to happen. A legendary dragon just fell down right in front of me. It was freaking awesome, and I was actually shocked. And I actually switched to my one-handed weapons because I have 100 skill in one-handed weapons on this character. So that would be my best method to kill a legendary dragon. A legendary dragon, even despite my good weapons and armor, actually kind of scares the crap out of me. I used my Dragon Rend shout on him in order to make him not fly anymore, and then I was able to kill him. Now it's also worth noting there's a lot of skeletons in this area, and while I was fighting the dragon, my horse went to go take care of the skeletons, so we worked pretty damn good together as a team, killing the legendary dragon, and you can see my horse in the background fighting off the skeletons. Now, after I collected the soul, I headed towards the center of this temple, and I found a dragon priest. Now, according to the wiki, this enemy here will be leveled, so sometimes it could be a Draugr, sometimes it might be a dragon priest. So, whatever it is, just kill it, and then you can loot its body. For me, it had a lot of gold on it, which is pretty darn good. And then there's two paths, one to the north and one to the west. So, if you take the western path, you will find a word wall for the shout, health, drain, vitality. Now, it's worth mentioning that you have to have the Dawnguard DLC for this word wall to be here. If you don't have the DLC, there will be no word wall. And then you can admire the structure of the temple like I was. I just thought it was very beautiful. Heading up north, we have a very long staircase to the top of this mountain. There is a trap at the top, so be careful. This Draugr accidentally activated the trap, but it unfortunately missed him. I was really hoping it was going to hit him. Anyways, kill the Draugr, and then do not use the trap, or activate the trap, of course, and we can head to the other side of this small building. Now, on the other side, you can find a gigantic cliff that would take you down to the rift. Obviously, we don't want to jump off. There's also what appears to be some small statues or some small graves on the other side of this building. Don't really know what these are or what they're for, but they kind of look like graves, perhaps. And then next to us is actually a small tower that brings us to a very high point. According to the wiki, this is one of the highest points in Skyrim, so pretty cool. And I didn't actually realize there was a tower until I got shouted out by a Draugr, and I was like, oh, there's a huge freaking tower over here. And so I made my way up, killing these Death Lords. Now, this Death Lord was pretty easy because I was able to Fusrodaw him into a corner, and he was pretty much, not able to do anything. However, the next Death Lord Fusrodawed me off the edge here. Thankfully, he Fusrodawed me off the edge near the mountain. If he Fusrodawed me off the other edge, I might have actually died, which is, pretty impressive for him. But then I killed him, and his body went flying off the cliff instead, so, haha! After that, we can make our way up the tower. Now, within the inside of the tower, there is no loot. However, at the top, we can find a leveled chest that'll have random loot inside of it. And at the very tippy top, we can find a skill book, which will enhance our restoration skill by 1. So not bad at all. And there's also a dead skeleton at the top. This poor soul probably died quite some time ago. And after that, you can just admire the view of the Rift and Skyrim. Very, very beautiful from up here. Now, also from here on the map, I wanted to see where the other path leads. So here you can actually see the location of Arcwind Point on the map, and then there's another path around here somewhere, so I decided to head north and follow this path to see where it goes. So we'll speed it up here so you don't have to watch me just riding a horse for so long. And it comes out over here, and yeah, pretty beautiful area, and this path is a lot easier to access in my opinion. Now, as I came down, I was really shocked to find these dead Stormcloak soldiers and these dead Imperial soldiers. and I thought I was getting attacked by a Stormcloak because I did side with the Imperials on this character. However, it was just a scavenger, and then I Fusro-dawed his head into a tree and killed him, so that was pretty freaking epic in my opinion. Now, in case you guys want to use the other entrance, which is just southeast of Ivarstead, you need to go to the Rift Imperial Camp or heading over to the ruins of Bethalft. So either of these locations will allow you easier access to Arcwind Point, at least in my opinion. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. This location was freaking awesome. I had so much fun, especially with the way that dragon came down. It was just so freaking cool. If you guys have any more recommendations for Unexplored Skyrim, please drop them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Greywater Grotto. This is just a small cave that is southwest of Helgen. Now this location was really fun for me to explore because this kind of matches the original intention of Unexplored, where I just kind of play through the game and find random, kind of relatively unknown locations and check them out. So, without further ado, let's check out Greywater Grotto. And here you can see the location of Greywater Grotto, very close to Helgen. I really didn't know this location existed, and as you approach you will find some wolves just on the outside of it, and they're pretty darn easy to kill even for a low level. Now, if you look behind you, you can actually get a pretty good view of the destroyed Helgen. So this location is pretty cool because it gave me a different perspective of Helgen that I had not seen before. As I approached, there were a lot of bones and I found a coin pouch, so some free money is always good, and there you can see Helgen. And as we enter the grotto, we will find even more wolves inside and a dead deer that was obviously killed by the wolves. And as you make your way through, you will hear a small stream running through the cave. However, most of it is frozen, and there's also a lot of ore veins in here, like this iron ore vein. Also, as you make your way through, you will hear the wolves howling, and it just kind of creates a really cool ambiance, where you have like the lighting from the holes in the ceiling, you have the sound of the water, and then you have the sound of the wolves. So just a really kind of cool place. However, there really isn't a whole lot in here, besides it just is very pretty, and obviously very cold. As we make our way further into the cave, we come to this central chamber, which kind of has this small stone bridge, and then we can find a chest surrounded by bandits. So we can see that these bandits were using this cave for whatever reason. Maybe they were attacking or stealing from Helgen, but they were all killed by wolves. So not very good bandits after all. Then inside of this room, there's also this pond. However, we cannot enter the water, except over here by the waterfall. And also over here, there is what appears to be a mammoth skull. But besides that, not a whole lot in this cave besides what is in that chest and on the dead bandits. But I really enjoyed exploring this location. And according to the wiki, if you go into the pond in the final area, like I did, you can actually become stuck inside of the ice cap, and you would have to kill yourself or just simply reload the save to get unstuck. Alright guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you have any recommendations for a future location, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Ancient's Ascent, which was recommended to me by Food2320. Now, this location, while recommended to me, I actually accidentally stumbled upon when just kind of exploring and going my own route in Skyrim. And when I found the location, I was like, oh wow, this was recommended to me. So I was really intrigued, and it is a pretty darn cool location. However, one thing I want to mention is that while there's technically only one official way to access this location, it can be accessed from many angles, so I want to go over how I accessed it first, and then we'll dive into the location. And here on the world map, you can see the location of Ancient's Ascent. It is very close to Bloodlet Throne and near Helgen. here we are at Bloodlet Throne, and I was just kind of trying to make my way to Falkreath from here, and as I was making my way, I was like, oh, there's some kind of temple over here, so I decided to go check it out, and I came over this mountain, and if you just come on over, you can find Ancient's Ascent. Now, with the way the game is designed, you're actually supposed to access this location from the bottom of the mountain. You're supposed to find another location, Bone Chill Passage, which we will talk about and we will explore, but you're supposed to go through Bone Chill Passage in order to access this area. But you can access it through many other means as well, as you can see. So when you first come to this location and you've completed the quest, Dragon Rising, a dragon will make its home here, and you'll have to kill said dragon. However, I haven't completed Dragon Rising yet, despite the fact it's a very early quest, so for me there were just some leveled creatures here, and those creatures were wolves. However, depending on your level, the higher the level, the more difficult the creature will be. But even without completing Dragon Rising, we can still collect the word from the word wall here, which grants a word of the Animal Allegiance Shout. And after collecting the word, I decided to go ahead and loot this chest, which contains random leveled loot. So I took what loot I thought would be useful for me on my journey very early into this playthrough of Skyrim. And I looked around the surrounding area and just found some skulls and some bones, one being a troll skull. Then, as we make our way down the cliff here with a very beautiful view, we can find Bone Chill Passage, which is actually the exit to Bone Chill Passage. As we enter, we can find 2 skeletons and a mammoth skull, and then we can find what is supposed to be the boss of this passage, an ice wolf, which is more difficult to kill than a normal wolf. After killing the ice wolf in a kind of funny way, I just burned him and his body flew into the wall there. I decided to check out this final chamber of this area. However, there was really nothing in here. Of course, we can take the wolf pelt, and there was a skeleton with some gold, but besides that, there was no loot in this, final area. So as I made my way further into Bone Chill Passage, I found this kind of, central or middle chamber between the entrance and the exit, which contained a wolf, along with some okay loot, such as a skill book that will increase our heavy armor by 1, so not a bad find. Also, there is a knapsack with some random loot in it, such as books and gold and potions, so not bad. And also a circlet that is worth a lot of money. But besides that, there really isn't a whole lot in here besides some dead bandits and some skeletons which you can loot for possible gold. And then right in front of us is the exit, or truthfully, it is the entrance to Bone Chill Passage, just we came from behind. And with that, we can see the entrance to Bone Chill, which is actually a pretty cool looking area. I just came from the wrong direction. So there it is, Ancient's Ascent. This is a really cool area that has some very beautiful landscape and just kind of a really cool atmosphere to it. So thank you for the recommendation, and it was really fun to just discover naturally. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you have any recommendations for a future location, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Angi's Shack. Now this is a location that I just kind of stumbled upon while randomly exploring around and making my way towards Falkreath, and I was really shocked at how amazing this location was. When I started filming, I thought it was just going to be some kind of small random shack, but it's actually pretty in-depth and a pretty freaking cool side quest that we can complete here. So let's check out Angi's Shack. And here you can see the location of Angi's Shack, just kind of south of Falkreath and a little bit west of Bloodlet Throne and Ancient's Ascent, kind of right in the middle there on the cliffs above Falkreath. Now as you approach, you're going to find these sticks in the ground, and at first I thought they were like graves or like some kind of wheels, but they're actually targets. So you'll see in a little bit, but they're involved in the little bit of a side quest or training that is associated with this location. As we make our way up to the actual camp, we can find a campfire, firewood, along with a chair and of course cooking pots. And inside we can find Angi herself. She has a coin purse that you could steal, and she is just cooking away. Now she does threaten to kill you if you were to try anything stupid. However, it is probably best to befriend her because she can train us in the ways of archery. In fact, she can actually raise our archery level by quite a lot, so it's worth doing her little side quest. Now, the quest that is associated with her is called Composure, Speed, and Precision, which is an unmarked quest in Skyrim. And after talking to her for a little bit, you can learn that her family was killed by 2 Imperial officers, and that she has become an expert archer since then because she killed those officers. And she is willing to teach us in the ways of archery. And she offers us a few challenges in order to increase our skill. The first challenge is pretty darn easy. We just have to hit all 3 of these targets when she tells us to. First middle, second left, and third is right. A very easy challenge which increases your archery by 3 levels. Now, the second challenge is a little bit more difficult. We have to hit all 3 targets within 8 seconds. But it's really not that difficult, and we can complete it pretty easily. However, completing this challenge only increases our archery skill by 1, but I mean, it's better than nothing. And also, while you're doing all of this, she'll give you little tidbits about her background and her relationship with her family, and how she became such an amazing archer. Now, for the third challenge, we have to shoot the target in the way back, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I struggled with this for a little bit, so perhaps with this character we should not be an archer. Now, my first shot, I actually thought I hit the target, and I may have, and maybe it just kind of glitched. But after that, I kept aiming directly at the target, which you're not supposed to do, and I didn't think you would. You want to aim just above the target so you can hit it, because obviously the arrow loses velocity the further it travels. But even if you suck as much as I do at archery, she gives you unlimited arrows so you can keep practicing. Now, for the fourth and final challenge, we have to hit all 4 targets in under 10 seconds. I thought this was going to be pretty challenging, and I actually messed up at the beginning by firing a bit too early, but I actually completed this in one go, so not half bad if you ask me. However, it was quite close as far as 10 seconds is concerned, but we hit all 4 targets, we completed the quest, and our archery skill went up by 1 more time. After that, she will say that she has taught us everything that she knows, and that she appreciates our company.
It was my pleasure. It's not often I get visitors out here, let alone friendly ones. Thanks for sticking around and keeping me company. It was nice to finally meet someone out here who doesn't want to rob you or take off your head. I know it isn't much, but here, take this bow. It was given to me by my family. It's special to me, but brings back too many painful memories.
And hello everyone, Future Otter here. During editing, I realized I forgot to mention that inside of Angi's bedroom, there is a book, the Gold Ribbon of Merit, which will increase your archery by 1, so definitely pick that up. And after that, she'll give us Angi's bow, which I think is pretty freaking cool. So, there you have it, Angi's shack. This was a freaking awesome location, and just something I really wasn't expecting. I was actually expecting to make a very short video, just about a random-ass shack in the mountains. Turns out this shack has a lot more to it, and has a bit of a training course for people who want to start archery. A really cool place. Alright guys, as always, if you have any recommendations for a future video, please post them in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Peakshade Tower, along with Pinewatch. Now, Pinewatch actually might be a somewhat better known location, because it's part of the quest Silver Lining, which is a part of the Thieves Guild questline. But you don't actually have to start the Thieves Guild questline in order to go into Pinewatch and to clear it out. So let's go ahead and check it out and see what there is for us to see. And as you can see here on the world map, Peakshade Tower is just northeast of Falkreath, and then Pinewatch is just a bit more further northeast. So all kind of in a straight line from one another. Now, to be honest, at this tower there is not a whole lot of interest. Since I'm a lower level, there was a low level Spriggan, which was really easy to kill, and then inside of the tower there isn't a whole lot. There's also nothing surrounding the tower. It really seems that this location is just meant to act as decorative and as a fast travel point for the character that is near Falkreath and near Pinewatch. But obviously, I don't know when else I would really talk about this location, so I decided to go ahead and tie it into the Pinewatch video. Over here, there actually is a chest hidden within the greenery, and we can get some gold and an iron helmet, but nothing that great. There's also some herbs and stuff that might be of interest to you. Now, as we make our way to the northeast, we're going to find a bandit encampment. And there's a bit of a trap that the bandits have set for us. They'll send some rocks raining down from above. Luckily, they all missed me, and then I just kind of ran up to the bandit in order to kill him. Now, there was only one bandit stationed here, which would kind of surprise me. Maybe there might be more. Don't really know, but obviously we can see that this area is lacking any kind of law enforcement, probably due to the ongoing civil war, making it more difficult to guard areas even close to cities like Falkreath. Then as we make our way further northeast, I got attacked by a wolf, and I killed the wolf by kicking him in the face, which I have to say might be the most badass way to kill a wolf ever. And then we continue to make our way to the northeast, and eventually you're going to find this small, cute little house up on this hillside. And this cute little innocent-looking house is Pinewatch. And attached to this is the quest Silver Lining, in order to solidify the Thieves Guild's influence in the Reach. Now, normally here during the quest, when you come to this shack, you'll go down to the basement and you'll find a named bandit named Rorlak. However, Rorlak can be bribed and he'll reveal the location of a button that allows us to access the rest of Pinewatch. However, this button is always here, so we can always access the hidden parts of Pinewatch, which is pretty cool. It's not relying on the quest, and we can even take the quest item associated with Silver Lining. So let's dive into it. After picking the lock and entering the cabin, I was immediately targeted by the bandits inside. They immediately deemed me as hostile, so I killed the lone bandit. Not bandits, one bandit. And there is not a whole lot of loot inside of this cabin, but over here on this table we can find a note to Rorlak, which just kind of talks about the little operation that they got going on here, kind of used as a place to hide the thieves. Now, for whatever reason, anything in here is considered stealing, despite the fact this place is owned by bandits, and then you can see the button behind the table. Pressing the button will open this bookcase, and then we can make our way further into the dungeon now. These are actually Nordic ruins, and that are just disguised with a little cabin above us. Now, there is various loot in here, like potions and stuff, but I was over encumbered, so I had to drop some of my loot that I've been collecting along my journey so far. I'm hoping to go to Falkreath here soon in order to sell off a lot of the loot I've collected recently. There are going to be quite a few bandits in here, as you might imagine. This is a bandit hideout, used to do all kinds of mischievous and nefarious things in Skyrim. Now, there is a adept locked wooden door in this first room, and you can pick it, obviously, in order to get some pretty minor loot. I don't know if it was really worth it, but you might be interested to get some potions and other items like that. Now, unfortunately, in this first room, there really isn't a whole lot, just kind of ruins and a destroyed mess. So, besides this little closet, there isn't a whole lot of loot. As we make our way into the next chamber, we will find some more things of interest, with that being a lot of bandits. Now, killing these bandits is actually pretty easy, at least for me and my level, because they're all just normal level 1 bandits, and using a combination of destruction, fire magic, and a mace, I was able to quickly make work of all of them. Then inside of this room, there is a chest. Now, there is a little stairway up to this chest, but I decided to parkour my way over to this chest, and we can get some random loot inside of the Novus Lock. And after this, we can make our way further down into the dungeon, which is behind us, just down a little ramp, and then we will finally find one of the most difficult enemies we faced yet, a bandit outlaw. Now, I'm sure the bandits are leveled within here, so it depends on your level, what kind of difficulty you'll have. Then we can make our way to Pinewatch Bandit Sanctuary, and this is where the real loot can be found. And again, there are more bandits, but we're just kind of burning them to death at this point. Kind of a brutal death when you actually think about it. But either way, we're just taking them out. Obviously, these are not good people. And then eventually we can find Rora's letter. And by reading this letter, we can learn about two bandits, Rigel and Rora, and some kind of feud that is brewing between them, with Rora trying to convince his fellow bandits to go into the loot or the treasure room and to take all of the loot inside so they can sell it off and have a good life. We'll make our way further into the dungeon, again just killing more bandits. Eventually I found a room with two cages, one of them expert and one adept locked. However, I decided not to pick them or waste my time just because I couldn't see anything in the cages, so I just figured there was really nothing of interest. Then making our way even further, we found another bandit outlaw who, that's the most difficult enemy apparently in this place for us, and my stats are increasing pretty fast at that point. And in this room, we can see that the bandits had to fight off some Draugr, so kind of cool environmental storytelling. These bandits did have to deal with some of the hidden terribleness inside of here. And then in the next room, we can find a large living quarters for the bandits. It's just this large cave, and we'll just keep burning them to death because why not? It's pretty efficient. I slash the air for good measure as a warning to these bandits who will soon also meet their end. Very violent deaths. But besides that, there's not a whole lot in this room besides this next area I just thought looked really cool. We have a campfire and a little bar over here. Very kind of homey place, but I was thinking, like, how do you have a fire going in this cave? Seems like the cave would just fill with, CO2 and you would probably die of smoke inhalation, but hey, what do I know? Maybe there is a small exit somewhere. Moving further into the cave, we will find the place where Rigel lives. And in Rigel's room, we'll find a large table with various notes on it. One of them appears to be from Rigel's father, who is very disapproving of her new lifestyle as a bandit, as a raider, and threatens to, no longer marry her off to someone that is good. But I don't know how much of a threat that is now, considering his daughter is an outlaw. There's also a threat about a warning that talks about Rora from earlier, and apparently Rora was caught, and now he is dead. So Rora's plan to infiltrate the treasure room did not work. Then I could find Rigel's strong arm sleeping in the back, and we were able to kill her. So pretty easy, actually, fight using destruction magic. And then you definitely want to loot the body because we can get the treasure room key, which is otherwise a master lock, which is really too difficult for me in this early playthrough. Perhaps if you're a higher level, you might want the XP associated with it. Inside of Rigel's bedroom, we can find a chest that just contains random loot, as with almost every chest in Skyrim, I suppose. And there was also a battle axe sticking out of the chest for whatever reason. We can then make our way further through the dungeon using the master key. Be careful of various traps, such as this little stone plate that launched a ton of arrows. It looks really cool, though. But be careful of traps. You're going to see me fail at a couple of these. Like this next trap, I was like, ooh, I'm going to jump over this part. And then, I don't know why, I figured if I step on this, it would activate the axes for a cool cinematic. Instead, I just got slammed in the head with a log. Yeah, I'm not very smart. Anyways, just keep making your way through the dungeon, and eventually you go to the treasure room. A mace will come flying down as you open that door, but, we were ready for it. And then you'll find this large table that has all kinds of good loot on it. Of course, be careful of the traps, this pressure plate. But we can take all of the loot on this table, including the curious silver mold, which is required for the Silver Lining quest. Now, of course, once you've gotten the mold, we cannot sell it, we cannot get rid of it. It is actually weightless, despite the fact it says it weighs 1. It does not weigh anything. And after that, we can easily exit Pinewatch. So, there you guys have it. Pinewatch at a very early level. I don't know if it's exactly the way the creators intended us to play through, but it's possible nonetheless. It's also a great way to get some good loot early in this game, like for myself. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you have any recommendations for a future location, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. We are finally making our way into Falkreath, and I just have to say, Falkreath is so freaking beautiful. I love the luscious green colors that are always surrounding you. It's a little bit distinct from some of Skyrim's other holds that are just so white and snowy, and I mean, it is Skyrim, it is the north, it is cold, but Falkreath is awesome. So today we're going to be checking out Falkreath Tower alongside the roadside ruins. So let's dive into it. Here you can see the location of roadside ruins and Falkreath Watchtower, both of which are just north of Falkreath itself. Both are just right on the road, and they're right in between Falkreath and Lake Ilinalta. Now, Falkreath Watchtower doesn't really have a defined entrance or path up to it, but we can just kind of climb up on the rocks, as you saw there. And as you approach, you'll notice that this place is in really bad disrepair. The tower is leaning over, there's a skull on the frickin' entrance of it, so we immediately know that, well, Falkreath probably is not using this place anymore. And as we make our way up to the top, we can find a necromancer who's trying to revive a dead Khajiit. Now, we can go ahead and kill the necromancer, so her minion will also die, and her minion got up, but then disintegrated into ash. So a pretty easy fight, because she was just by herself. Then we can find a book to increase our conjuration, along with a book of Daedric, which I just thought was an interesting find. Up top, we can find various dead bodies and other, disturbing things. I mean, it was a necromancer, so, not that surprising. And also at the top, though, on a more positive note, you can get some absolutely stunning views of the surrounding area, including Falkreath and Lake Ilinalta. Now, if we make our way just down the hill a bit towards the south, we can find the roadside ruins. Obviously, these are along the roadside, and they are just these old Nordic ruins. But as you approach, you will find two dead bandits, so right away we kind of know something might be wrong. We have some dead bandits, so obviously something killed them. And then we can find a Spriggan that will spawn inside. And again, a pretty easy kill though, since it's just by itself. But obviously the Spriggan's probably responsible for killing those two bandits. But hey, less work for us. We only have to kill one thing versus two things. Then in the middle of the ruins, we can find a tree, a lot of greenery, and in the very back there is a chest which will have obviously random loot. So I took the loot that I wanted, and also next to it is a skill book that will increase our enchantment skill, which is pretty darn good. But besides that, not a whole lot at these two locations, just kind of small fast travel points that are next to Falkreath. Now I did want to point out that outside of these ruins, we do have these stone pillars. I just thought they were kind of interesting. And there we have it, Falkreath Tower and roadside ruins. Now, right now we are at the top of Falkreath Tower, and then you can see the ruins below us, and eventually you can see Lake Ilinalta. This is just such a beautiful area. You have the huge towering mountains over Falkreath, and this is actually one of my favorite areas in all of Skyrim, just from what I remember when I played the game long ago. So naturally I kind of gravitated towards this area, wanting to explore it and wanting to see what it has to offer. Alright guys, if you have any recommendations for future videos of Unexplored Skyrim, please post them in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out the absolutely gorgeous Lake Ilinalta. We're going to be checking out a lot of the surrounding area and see what secrets we can find at Lake Ilinalta. As you can see from this opening, this lake is absolutely gorgeous. There's so many cool hidden places around the lake, and I had a ton of fun making this video and exploring the surrounding area. Of course, this is in the Falkreath Hold, and it is just an incredible experience going around this area. So without further ado, let's jump into it. And here's the location of Lake Ilinalta. We're going to be starting at the southwestern portion of the lake at Half Moon Mill, and then make our way around the lake clockwise, moving to Inalta's Deep, Brittleshin Pass, Anissa's Cabin, the Lady's Stone, and then the Silver Moon. And we'll also have a sneak peek at Lakeview Manor, even though we aren't the Thane of Falkreath yet. Now, as I made my way around Lake Ilinalta, I found there weren't very difficult enemies, so it was a pretty leisurely stroll around the lake. And at Half Moon Mill, we can find two vampires running the mill, Hurt and Hearn. However, they both are actually quite friendly to the player character. They will not harm us, they will not attack us. We can even stay inside their lodging, and they won't hurt us. And we can even sell them logs or buy sewn logs from them if we are building a house. However, these characters turn hostile during the Dark Brotherhood contract quest, Kill Hearn. So, because of the Dark Brotherhood, you might have to kill Hearn, and then you'll become an enemy to these people. And I just want to point out on this chopped down tree, we have a dead rabbit and a bottle of mead. There's also an iron ore vein next to that. And then as we make our way to the far northwestern part of the lake, we can find a lone fisherman who has obviously been here for a while. He says he's been fishing in these parts for years. He has a little bit of a campfire and a rowboat, which is pretty cool. We also have an absolutely immaculate view, which is what you saw earlier in the video. And there are various ingredients around the lake, as you saw there on that log. So if you're into alchemy and that's your kind of thing, then you definitely want to pay attention for that. As you can see there was a mud crab and a frickin' elk. Elk stood no chance against my fire. And then we arrive at Ilinalta's Deep. Now, I really didn't know what to expect at this part because this is a part of the quest, the Black Star, which is a part of the College of Winterhold quest line. Upon some research, I actually thought the entrance would be blocked off. However, I misunderstood, and actually you can go inside and pretty much complete the vast majority of the dungeon. At the very beginning, we will find this skeleton hanging from this pole, and inside the knapsack we can find some random loot, but in that knapsack we can find a fisherman's journal, which we can presume belongs to the skeleton. And if we read the journal, we learn that this fisherman, a long time ago, couldn't catch any fish, so he decided to move to Lake Ilinalta, which at the time had a bad reputation for ghosts or being haunted or being dangerous, and obviously we can see that this fisherman met a very dark fate. It's also worth mentioning that Ilinalta's Deep used to be an old imperial fortification before it sunk into the lake, or the lake took it in and engulfed it. Now as we make our way through the dungeon, we want to go to our left. If we go to our right, we come to a dead end. So we want to kill these necromancers who will revive skeletons, but it's a pretty easy fight as you move through. We'll come into this large dining area, and you want to kill everyone, obviously. And then we can find a variety of potions, which can always be good, especially if you're a new player such as myself. Now, in this earlier room, there is some more potions, which is of course good. And the main thing I wanted to point out is this fireplace in the dining room is quite scary looking. There's a lot of skulls that are very bloody on these spikes. Don't know why they did that, but, interesting design choice. Then in the next room, we can find a large flooded room. There'll be a necromancer with a skeleton, so we definitely want to take him out. And after killing him and his skeletons, I didn't kill the skeletons because I thought they were attached to the necromancer. After killing the skeletons, there is a chest which we can loot, which will contain random loot. Now, in this flooded compartment, you will actually want to go for a swim, so activate your otter powers, and you want to dive down into this flooded section. We'll just find a flooded room with an empty nightstand, or just dresser, I guess, not a nightstand, I don't know what the difference is, and then a chest which will contain random loot, which for me was pretty good considering my level. Then above you there will be a skill book. But I was really confused because I knew there was a skill book in here, but I couldn't find out where it was. So after digging some on the internet, because the wiki was of absolutely no help to me in this matter, I finally found that it's floating on the ceiling. You could see it, I just swam just right by it. But after looking around, I was able to find the skill book. Here it is, so just look at the ceiling and it'll increase your alteration skills. So a pretty solid find if you ask me. And then as we keep making our way through Ilinalta's Deep, we will eventually find a room with an enchanting table and an alchemy set. Definitely make sure to kill everyone in here unless you're just like a masochist. And then you want to lockpick this door. And inside of this room we can find some pretty good potions. There's also a chest that you can loot for some, at least for me it was just gold, but hey, better than nothing. And in the other room there were some more potions. Again, I'll take whatever I can get. Now, across from the alchemy stand, we can find a Tragedy in Black, which will increase our enchanting skill, which is freaking awesome. Then on this bookshelf, I was trying to find it. I was a bit confused. There are several books, but on the top shelf, we can find a copy of Vernacus and Borler, maybe? And this will increase your archery skill by 1, but since I've already found this book, it doesn't do anything for me, but maybe it does something for you, so you're welcome. And then as we continue our way, we come to this like main chamber where you'll have your most difficult fight yet. In this room, you'll have to fight a leveled necromancer that is across from you, so you have to swim over in order to kill them. And this is kind of the quote-unquote boss of this dungeon. However, if you're doing the Black Star quest, then you're going to have a much more difficult fight against Malin Varen later on in the dungeon. But since we are not doing that quest yet, it is impossible to access that room, so, we'll just cry about it. Now, inside of this chest, we can find some really good loot, so definitely make sure to take a look at it. As we make our way towards the end, we will find a locked door that just really had some potions in here for me, but, not bad, but not really great either. And then as we continue our way up this staircase, we will eventually find a blocked door, and by opening this, we can see the entrance to Ilinalta's Deep. Now, there will be a large stone kind of blocking this small creek or like this river of water, and this is where you'd have to go during the Black Star quest. Now, even if you console command remove that boulder, the door will be absent, so the door doesn't appear until you start the quest. Quite interesting. And as you can see, when we exited Ilinalta's Deep, we were greeted with a very beautiful sight in the sky with the aurora and the moons. Now, just to the east and a bit to the north of Ilinalta's Deep, we will find Brittleshin Pass. And this pass just leads us through the mountain range that kind of divides Falkreath and Whiterun. So, definitely a worthwhile passage, I guess, if you're not using fast travel. Now, inside, there's pretty much just skeletons, but you will find a necromancer, so do be aware of that. However, there's really not a whole lot inside of this pass. It's simply a method to get through the mountain, which I do have to say is pretty darn cool. It really makes Skyrim feel very authentic. Like, I can imagine these kind of ancient passes in a magical world. It's really cool. Kill the necromancer in the next room, and we can also find a book that will increase our conjuration. Skill books are always welcome loot, in my opinion. On the skeleton, there was some gold, and there's also some more books if you're interested, and an enchanting table. Continue to make your way, there is a chest with a flawed Varla stone, and as far as opposition, there's just some skeletons and a few traps, so do be careful of the traps, those are no fun, but skeletons are pretty easy to kill. And then we'll come out at the northern end of the pass, and as you can see here on the world map, we are now on the other side of the mountain range, so pretty darn cool, pretty darn fast as well, I might say, much easier than climbing over the mountain. Now, this next location, Anissa's cabin, was recommended to me by random motherfucker K6W. So this location is just a small cabin in the woods, and there's a very nice grandma who is ready to greet us here, whose name we can obviously assume is Anise, and she says, "I'm just a poor old woman. No need to trouble me with anything." And then she says, "Oh, I'm so happy that I have a guest. Wow, we have a visitor." Well, folks, if you can't tell, she's kind of hiding something. Now, if you have never visited this location, I'd recommend pausing the video and then coming back after you've played through this area. But anyways, inside of her bedroom, we can find a locked trap door leading us to a cellar. Now, if you try to take anything, it would be considered stealing. Now, behind us, over on this desk, we can find Anissa's letter, which reads, "Helgi, dear, why do you hesitate? You can feel the power coursing in your blood. You have only to reach out and grasp it. Renounce that boy of yours and come live with me in the forest. My sister will be here soon. Together we can form a proper coven and your training will truly begin." So we can learn that Anise is actually a witch, and as soon as we leave the cellar, she will attack us. She doesn't attempt to explain herself. She doesn't try and play innocent. Honestly, I don't really know what's so bad about practicing magic out in the forest in a game called Skyrim where there's so much magic anyway. But anyways, she will attack us and we have to kill the witch. Too bad, not very sad. And after that, we still cannot take any loot from this cabin without the game considering it stealing, which is quite unfortunate. There's also a skill book that'll increase our alchemy skill. But besides that, not a whole lot out here, but we can sleep in the bed. And I thought that was pretty interesting because everything else is stealing. Now, as we come to the northeastern part of Lake Ilinalta, we can find the beginning of the White River, which is, of course, where Whiterun gets its name. And there's also a fisherman here who says he's poaching. Maybe we should arrest him, but we're not about that. Also pretty darn cool, we can find a fishing map of Lake Ilinalta, which tells us the best fishing locations in the area. Pretty freaking cool if you ask me. Now, as we make our way west back across Lake Ilinalta, we will eventually find some unmarked Nordic ruins. Of course, these are now underwater, so perhaps they just collapsed into the lake, or perhaps the lake used to be much more shallow. But we're going to talk about this lake's, depth later in the video, so don't you worry. Now, there's really nothing in the ruins, besides maybe some ingredients and an iron mace. And most notable is this chest underneath the staircase, and so definitely take a look at that, see what kind of loot you get. But besides that, not a whole lot at these unmarked ruins. After that, we will continue our way across Lake Ilinalta, and eventually we'll find this unmarked fisherman who has a small camp here at the middle of this island, which is really a good place to camp out and do some fishing, I thought. He also has a nice little rowboat. There's also a really small island right next to that bigger island, and so from here we can just really take in the views of Falkreath. Now we want to continue towards the middle of the lake, where we can find the Lady's Stone. This is a standing stone, and upon activating this stone, it'll increase your health and stamina regeneration by 25%. This can also be used to counteract the effects of a vampire for their lack of health and stamina regeneration during the day. So not half bad if you're a vampire. And then right next to the Lady's Stone, we can see the mast of a ship. And if we go down below the water, we can find a massive shipwreck that has largely been picked over. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of loot here besides ingredients. Now, there's a chest, which I'll show later, but besides things like slaughterfish eggs and fungus, there really isn't a whole lot here. Now, we can actually swim into the old parts of the ship, and we can kind of explore around the shipwreck. Even if you don't have a potion of water breathing, you can still take a fairly good look at the shipwreck. Just keep going up to the surface to get some oxygen. And we cannot go very deep though, because a lot of the ship is simply too far deep into the soil. Now on the middle deck is where we can find a chest next to a skeleton. Perhaps the skeleton was really trying to protect 3 gold. My guy, not very smart. And also in this main area, we can assume this may have been the captain's quarters, because at the top we can find a skeleton, and we can actually take the skull of this skeleton. So I decided to take the captain out of his ship and to place him over on land. Don't know why I did this, don't know if it's respectful, seems a bit disrespectful, but hey, I finally rescued the poor captain of this sunken ship. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this ship and the depth of the lake is why in the hell is a ship of that size in Lake Ilinalta? Either it was used as some kind of ferry or some kind of sightseeing, or the lake used to be much bigger and much deeper. Either way, I don't know. And as I said earlier, we'd take a quick look at Lakeview Manor. However, we cannot discover this location until we become Thane of Falkreath, which is unfortunate. But directly beneath Lakeview Manor, we can find a conjurer around this table who we can kill. And on this table, there is a skill book, which will increase our conjuration. So pretty darn good. Now, Lakeview Manor is perhaps my favorite house in all of Skyrim, simply because of the view of Lake Ilinalta is simply immaculate. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this longer video of Unexplored Skyrim, and I hope you learned something about Lake Ilinalta or the surrounding area. I had a lot of fun making this video and exploring around the area to see what I can find. There are so many interesting things in Skyrim, some of them are marked, some of them are unmarked. Either way, I'm enjoying playing this game, and I'm learning a lot about Skyrim and the world, a lot of things I didn't know before. Alright guys, if you have any recommendations for a future video or future video idea, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here. Welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Cracked Tusk Keep. This location within Falkreath Hold, directly west of Falkreath City. And Cracked Tusk Keep is just an old, decaying fort that is inhabited by a group of orcs. Now, these orcs are always hostile to the player character. Even if you have been named Bloodkin by the orc strongholds, it does not matter. These orcs are simply bandits, and they will attack you on sight. So let's go ahead and check out Cracked Tusk Keep. And as I mentioned before, this is located within Falkreath Hold, kind of where we're kind of exploring right now, directly west of Falkreath City itself. Pretty easy to reach if you just head there from Falkreath City, like I did. As you approach, you will notice a, well, collapsed tower, and then some defenses or walls that are obviously in very bad shape. These walls are not going to do the job of protecting these orcs. Now, there's going to be several orc hunters, and I was accidentally using practice arrows on this orc hunter, and practice arrows actually have 0 damage, however, they will still deal damage from the bow. But using iron arrows, and it was a lot easier to kill everyone. At first, I was a bit worried to use archery. I was like, wow, I'm not doing any damage. Well, because I was using practice arrows like a freaking idiot. Now, it is worth mentioning the reason I switched to archery is just because I have a ton of iron arrows that I've been, saving up for really no reason. So I figured I'd go ahead and give some of my archery skills a try. And as we went around the camp, we found like a room that would be used for cooking. They had some rabbits and fish and other meats that were obviously being prepared for some kind of meal. And then obviously just looting the orc hunters. And these hunters were good for me because they're all carrying a lot of arrows. Now inside of this hunt, towards the back of the fort, we can find a skill book to increase our smithing skill. And we can also kind of find a blacksmith area in this fort, which is pretty cool. I have to say this fort is actually pretty cozy. Despite the fact that there's murderous orcs inside, it is, pretty homely, pretty cozy. Now, just outside of the fort, to the left of the entrance, there's this tree stump, and there's ants crawling around on the tree stump. I read this on the internet, and I was really shocked to find this. I never knew this existed in Skyrim. I don't know why, I just thought it was really cool. Why did the devs put this in the game? How many players ever noticed this naturally? I certainly never did. But besides for our little friends, we can head on inside to the fortress. Now, this fort is pretty freaking small, and I was going to go downstairs at first just because that's what my brain told me to do, and I was rudely interrupted by some orc bandits and an orc hunter. However, they were pretty easy to kill because, well, they're pretty low level. After killing those orcs, I made my way back downstairs, and I found out this was the best place to go because we have a rolling potato. This potato is determined to do as many barrel rolls as possible. I picked it up and placed it back. I just found the position of these potatoes forces this one potato to like move around and spin. I just thought it was quite humorous. Maybe you don't, maybe I'm just weird, but hey, whatever. Also down here, there's a locked cage, an expert lock. However, there is a key on one of the orcs, so I decided to wait before I open that. And there's also an underground entrance to the fortress from the outside, and we can pick that lock pretty easily. As you can see, we're back outside near the blacksmith area. So pretty cool. There's also some fortifications above us, which we can reach later. Heading back into the fort, we kind of found a dining area with some very delicious food, or very delicious looking food. And then there's also minor loot. In this bookcase, we can find the Legend of Red Eagle, which will start a side quest, an unmarked or a miscellaneous quest, find Red Eagle Sword. So that might be a topic for a video in another day. Then as we made our way into this final room, we can see there's obviously a fireplace that was pissing me off, so I shot it with an arrow. And then we have, I don't know how to say that, but Gunzel, well, whatever his name is, Gunzel did not stand a chance for us, and we just burned him to death. Now, he was actually pretty difficult when I was using a bow and arrow, and so I switched to my destruction magic because it was a lot better against him. I took the key on his body along with 100 gold, and this key will allow us access to the cage that we saw earlier in the basement. There's also another key on the dresser, and on this bookshelf we had some coins and more potions. There is a ladder which we can take outside. This leads us to a trap door. We can kind of see the surrounding area. And we jump around up here, we can go on this little wooden wall, and in this northwest tower, we can find a master locked chest. Now, I don't have very high lockpick. As you can see, I had 28. However, in Skyrim or Elder Scrolls, it's still theoretically possible to pick these kind of locks. And I was so freaking close right there. And because I was kind of lucky in the placement of this lock, I decided to go ahead and pick it. But it still took me way too long. I wasted so many lockpicks. And the placement at this low of a level has to be so perfect. But we finally got it! And we got gold and an orcish battle axe. So after this, as you can imagine, naturally I was fuming. I was pissed. I spent 2 minutes and like a dozen lockpicks trying to open that stupid chest, and all I got was this. I was ready to kill who was ever in this vault. It's called the Cracked Tusk Vaults, and I opened it up, and I was extremely sad to find out there's no one in the vaults. So I'm gonna have to take out my anger in another video. But for now, we can head on down into the vaults where we can find 2 light cages and then a large cage that is obviously better protected. However, all of these vaults are really easy to open. We don't need any other keys besides that one earlier, or if you have expert lockpick and you're willing to, pick it, then you can come down here easily. Obviously, loot around, you can find a lot of sacks with various alchemy ingredients and some gold and stuff like that. There's 2 levers on these pillars which will open this large gate. In these smaller rooms there are buttons that we can use to open the gates, and in this second room from the entrance there is a book which will increase our light armor skill, which is pretty good. And the other room we can also find another important book and also some more gold. And then on the far left bookshelf we can find Lost Legends on top of it, and this will start the quest Forbidden Legends. Now, of course, we can find Lost Legends and the Red Eagle book throughout Skyrim, but we can actually find both of them within this fort, so it's just quite convenient. Then, as we make our way into the final chamber of the vault, we have to be careful because there are several traps just kind of laying around. There's also a locked chest that we can open, but it has, slightly better loot than the Master Lock chest. Who would have thunketh? And then we can also find the shards of Mehrunes' razor inside here on the pedestal. Be careful when you pick them up because it is a trap. And obviously the reason most players probably come here is because of the quest, Pieces of the Past, which require you to come here in order to find the shards. And there you have it, Cracked Tusk Keep. Now, this is a pretty minor location within Skyrim, and it's easily overlooked. However, as I stated earlier, I actually found this location to be really freaking cool. It just has a really warm and kind of homely feeling that I just really love, and I find this feeling throughout Skyrim. This place is not unique in that sense, but I just thought I would mention that it's very beautiful, it feels like a nice little home, and it's just quite peaceful way out here, besides the murderous orcs. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you liked the video, please let me know in the comment section below. Have you ever visited here? Do you have any recommendations for a future location? Please post them in the comment section below. And guys, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out the Valtheim Towers, which is a location along the White River, kind of just east of Whiterun. Now, this location has always been very memorable to me just because it's somewhere I've always encountered in all of my playthroughs of Skyrim. There's a fun kind of dialogue here with the bandits, and it just kind of has a unique feel to it, unlike other bandit outposts. So, without further ado, let's check out the Valtheim Towers. And like I said, the Valtheim Towers are just east of Whiterun, kind of by Dark Shade, which is a cave, which, well, surprise, surprise, we might be talking about in a later video. Now, like I said, as you approach, you will be confronted by these bandit outlaws, demanding you pay a toll of 200 gold to pass safely. Now, you can actually pay this toll, but I chose not to. And this is part of the reason why this location is so memorable to me. Another reason being is just it's these 2 giant towers that have a bridge over the river. It looks really badass, in my opinion. It looks really cool. But unfortunately, there's really not a whole lot going on here besides these bandits trying to take money from people, charging people a toll to pass through. Now, this place is littered with bandits, so I try to use bow and arrow to take out some of the people that were coming after me. However, the bandit chief snuck up behind me. Well, not really snuck. I saw him running in underneath me, but either way, I was able to kill him pretty easily as we rank up to level 9. I'm getting a lot better at this game. Things are getting a little bit easier. Then after clearing the first tower, we head over to the second tower, where there's a lone bandit on this cliffside. I just thought it's really cool how the towers, the entrances to both towers, are not on the same elevation. So pretty cool. Then we can make our way up to the second floor of this tower, and there is a locked chest in here. We also have an alchemy stand and some potions. Inside of the chest is just random loot from some gold and a potion. And upstairs there is yet another chest, who would have guessed, and there's some good gold and loot inside of it. Then we have a bed with potions and wine, and next to the bed is a skill book that'll increase our archery. So that's pretty good, and it's worth a nice amount of caps, so I decided to take it. Not caps, it's worth a nice amount of gold. Then I headed up to the top of the tower, and normally there is an enchanted bow here that you can take. However, for whatever reason, this enchanted bow was not able to be taken by me. I looked it up, and this is a glitch. People told me to fast travel or reload, but that did not work, and eventually the bow just disappeared. Quite sad. Then, real quick, I wanted to go north to Winterhold. You might be thinking, what does Winterhold have to do with the Valtheim Towers? Well, there is a bit. Now, on my way to our next location, I ran into this caravan of people, Plotus Carvan? Anyways, doesn't really matter their names. They're just rich people going to some kind of wedding, and they were very, very rude to me, so I decided to kill them, and they had actually really amazing loot on them, so, you know, good for me, and maybe they shouldn't be rude to me next time. Anyways, this is a fun kind of random encounter within Skyrim. You can encounter these people anywhere within the game, just walking along their road on their way to Solitude. Now, the reason we are up here is we want to check out Journeyman's Nook. And Journeyman's Nook is tied to the Valtheim Towers, simply because we can find a treasure map inside. So upon entering, we will find a lone bandit outlaw, and we want to kill them, obviously, but, you know, pretty easy to kill, actually. And also in here, we can find a dead student from the College of Winterhold. So a bit sad, don't know what they were doing way out here in the middle of the frozen tundra, but yeah, they met their end. There's some coin, and in this knapsack underneath the table, we can find a book. We don't care about that, but we want treasure map 2, and the picture on this treasure map clearly resembles the Valtheim Towers, so we definitely want to check out and see if we can find that chest. Also over here we have, well, a potion, but who cares about that? There's lots of potions, but there is an alchemy skill book, which will increase our alchemy skill. Then, back to the Valtheim Towers, if we head to the eastern part of the towers, and we look behind us here on the southern part of the river, we can find a chest. And inside this chest, we had some pretty decent loot. I got a really good bow, so I guess it wasn't all that bad. I did get the bow I was looking for. It's not enchanted yet, at least. And that's Valtheim Towers. Now, that chest will not spawn until you get the treasure map, just so you know. So if you go there, there's no treasure chest until you get the map. Now, there's a lot of theories about why this location might exist, from it being a border between the East and West Skyrim when Skyrim was divided. Don't really know why it's here, but it's pretty freaking cool in my opinion, and I just have a lot of fond memories of this place. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you have any recommendations for a future video or future location, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look at Falkreath, one of my favorite places in all of Skyrim. Now, Falkreath has a kind of bad reputation though. It's often shrouded in mist and light rain and clouds, it has dense forests surrounding it, and it just kind of has an eerie feeling to it. And according to the residents, it's cool and damp, and it is surrounded by death, featuring a very large graveyard, and of course the Dark Brotherhood is nearby. However, when that sun finally breaks through the clouds and there is a blue sky over Falkreath, we can see that it is truly quite beautiful, complete with colorful and interesting citizens, and a very interesting history within not only Skyrim, but Cyrodiil to boot. This place has a lot to offer, and is one of my favorite holds within of all of Skyrim. So, sit back, relax, and let's check out Falkreath. Naturally speaking, most players don't go to Falkreath right away. Because of the way the game kind of handles the beginning, it's in the opposite direction of where we need to go. Therefore, when most players hear about Falkreath, it's when they reach level 9 and they receive a letter from Jarl Siggeir. However, the Jarl of Falkreath does not have to send us a letter to come here, obviously, and if we approach him before level 9, he'll send us on a quest to prove our worth to him. And his request is pretty simple. to bring him back some Blackbriar mead. He is a partier, he's probably a bit corrupt, so he desires some mead in order for us to gain his favor. Pretty easy if you ask me, so we just have to make a quick trip over to Riften. Now, Riften is also home to some corruption and some thieves, and right when we arrive, the Riften guard will try to shake us down. However, I got very lucky with my persuasion, and I was able to convince him to not do this, and he let me inside for free with no toll. However, he had unlocked the gate, which took a second because he's, a dick. And then as we enter, we were confronted by Maul, who is kind of also a dick. Everyone in this town is just an asshole. I don't know what it is. Obviously, there's a lot of politics at play here, a lot of things going on. The Thieves Guild. But for now, we're not going to concern ourselves with that. We just want to go to the Blackbriar Meadery and buy some Blackbriar mead from our good friend Ungreen here? Something like that. Anyways, once we buy the mead, which is very expensive, I do have to say, we can head on back to Falkreath in order to give it to the Jarl. And after we give Jarl Siggeir the Blackbriar mead, he will now give us the next quest, which is normally given at level 9, which is to clear out some bandits that stopped paying him tribute. So we can see some corruption on his part here. He is a bit corrupt, taking payment from bandits in order to, carry out their nefarious activities. But these bandits made a big mistake. They decided to not pay. And also, I'm a very angry otter because a couple videos ago, I spent way too much time trying to unlock a master lock at low level, and all I got was a little bit of coin and a stupid battle axe. So now we have to use this battle axe to massacre some bandits. Now, on my way to the camp, Knife Point Ridge, where I have to go for the Jarl, I stumbled upon this carriage, and here is the location of this, crashed or just destroyed carriage. We have some dead horses. We also have a body that's been burnt to a crisp. Don't really know what happened here, and this is an unmarked location. I had never seen this before, and I was really curious. And I did some research online, and most people theorize that this was destroyed by a dragon. Kind of the beginning of Skyrim, right? We have dragons and stuff. So, this is probably what happened. However, I would like to theorize that the carriage was just going along its merry way, and all of a sudden just lost a wheel or something, it crashed, and then you got some Michael Bay stuff going on, and there was just a huge fucking explosion, chaos, and that's what happened, or perhaps something just crashed into it, like a jet, I don't know. But, anyway, I just thought it was a really cool area, and it adds a lot to the environmental storytelling of the world. And then finally making our way to Knife Point Ridge, we just find a bandit camp on the top of this mountain. This is actually an extremely beautiful area. Do be careful though, as the bandits do have a rock trap. I ran up and it just missed me. And at the top of the guard tower, we can actually find the lever that activates the trap. And of course, there's going to be a lot of bandits and stuff here that we have to kill. Now, most people might come to this location as part of the quest, Bothia's Calling. However, we can come here before that quest, but part of the mine that we will soon enter will be blocked off and we cannot enter that part, but we can still kill everybody and get some good loot. Such as next to the blacksmith, we can find a book that will increase our archery skills, so that's really good. Then we also have an alchemy station, but there's not much here, but there was a potion of magicka and some ingredients for, alchemy. And then towards the top of the camp, we have another guard tower with a bandit that was trying to shoot the ground for whatever reason. She was very angry at the wood. And then we have a bandit campfire, I guess it's just a normal campfire, near the entrance to the mine. Inside the mine, it is pretty small at this point, because we haven't started the quest. So, there's just a bandit chief inside. I took her out, yes, it was a girl this time, and I looted her body, but there really wasn't that much of interest on her. And the main reason we are here anyway is just to kill her for, the Jarl. There is a treasure chest that has some pretty decent loot inside of it. Then we have a very interesting cell over here. If we unlock it, we can find a dead Imperial. And what I imagine happened was the bandits may have locked him in here to mine, and he just died of, exhaustion or starvation or something. Over here, we can see the mine has collapsed, and this is the part of the mine that is blocked off. Pretty freaking brutal, though, because there's all those skeletons trapped in the rubble. After that, we can make our way to the top of the mine. It's quite a long climb, but there is a skeleton up here, which I thought was pretty interesting, and also it's very beautiful. And yes, for whatever reason, at the very top of this mountain here, way above the entrance to the mine, there is a dead skeleton with a hunting bow and a knapsack that has some decent loot inside of it, like a gold necklace. I don't know why this is here, but I just thought it was really freaking cool. We have to activate our inner mountain goat to get to the top of this place, but this is really out of the way, and just a place that most players would never see or experience, and I'm only left to ponder, why is this skeleton up here? How did this individual die? What were they trying to do up here with that bow and gold necklace in their knapsack? We'll never know, but it's fun to think about, and this is really the point of Unexplored. Upon our return to Falkreath, we can talk to the Jarl Siggeir, I think, and then we can tell him that we got rid of the bandits, and he'll congratulate us, and that he's very happy with our work, and that we can do dirty work for him. He'll give us 500 gold, and just like that, we can now purchase the property within Falkreath, which is pretty freaking awesome. But we want to continue helping out the good people of Falkreath, and our next stop is the cemetery. And the first time we visit the cemetery, we will witness a funeral taking place. Now, the funeral is for the daughter of Matthias and Endara, who are obviously a married couple, and their daughter was brutally murdered by something or someone, but that is a story for another time. But for now, I want to focus in on the priest that is leading the funeral. Runiel, who is a priest to RK, is a very interesting person. One, because he has a very interesting background, and two, because he's having some very interesting visions. Nonetheless, I've become very interested in this character after making this video. So, the first time you talk to him, he will tell you that he lost his journal in some kind of cave. And this is just kind of your standard fetch quest, so let's go ahead and complete it. Now, this quest can take you to a variety of random places across Skyrim. For me, it took me to Dark Shade, which is just east of Whiterun, so I made my way there, and this area is, who would have thought, really beautiful. I'm saying that way too much during the making of this series. Need to find something else. Here, though, we will find a very, very brutal scene just outside of the cave. There's numerous dead people. There's blood and skulls all over the place. Bones. Something terrible happened here. And, of course, we can go inside to find out what happened. Upon entering, you will find yourself in a very long and kind of intense battle with numerous trolls. Now, if you're a high level, I'm sure this would not be much of an issue. However, I'm just kind of a medium level at this point. Well, low level, really. I'm only level 9. So I had to be a bit smart in the way I went about fighting them, usually using the high ground and just running backwards. That way they can't hit me because they don't have any range, but they do hit like a truck if they can hit you. Eventually we'll enter this large chamber with a large waterfall, and we have some more trolls to kill. But, pretty easy at this point. This troll was really angry at the wall, and then he was trying to run away from me. I have no idea what was happening, and then my weapon ran out of charge, and it's just sad, but we can recharge it. But that weapon's getting a bit old now anyway. Now, inside this large room with the waterfall, there are a few things of interest. First, behind this kind of pillar on the west side of the room, there is a dead bandit killed by a troll. Also, this room just looks really freaking cool. This waterfall is awesome. Then on the other side of the small pond, we have a place to chop wood. Then there's a small little camp over here that's obviously been out of use for a while. But there is a book here that will increase our heavy armor. So that's pretty good. There's also some food and stuff. Then if we head up towards the east side of the cave, we will find this kind of secret or hard to get to chamber. And inside we can find a chest with bones and blood all over it. Who knows what went down in here, but perhaps these bandits or somebody was killed trying to protect this chest for whatever reason. Quite interesting. There's also a dead goat in here, that poor goat. Then as we move into the final chamber, we can find a ton of animal bones and stuff that have probably been dinner for the trolls. There's also some gold and stuff on some of the bodies, so take some time to loot around and see what you can find. Then inside the chest, we can find Runiel's journal. And upon reading Runiel's journal, we learn that he was once an Aldmeri battle mage during the Great War. And he has a lot of regret because he killed many people with his magic during the war. Now he's trying to repent for a lot of his sins by helping the people of Falkreath. And he keeps a journal of all of his regrets. Also, as you get towards the end of the journal, he makes some very interesting comments about some dreams he is having recently. It appears that he is having visions of the dragons, and of course, at the time that he wrote these, the dragons have not quite come back yet, So he's definitely getting some visions, perhaps from gods, or perhaps he just can see the future, who knows. But he does predict the dragon attacks, even though he doesn't really know it. And then upon returning the journal to Ranil, he'll give us a small reward for our efforts to get him the journal. Honestly, Ranil seems like a pretty chill dude, even though he kind of may have done some bad things in the past. He's doing his best now to correct his mistakes, which is pretty cool. And while on the topic of Ranil, if you want a really easy way to help out the people of Falkreath while trying to become Thane, head to the Dead Man's Drink late in the evening, and you can find this guy, Thadgear. And Thadgear will tell you that he lost his war companion recently, and that he needs to deliver the ashes to Ranil. However, Ranil is in the exact same place as him at this time, so just walk on over a couple of meters and hand Ranil the ashes, and Ranil will give you 250 coin, and also this will increase your reputation, or not really reputation, but it'll create more friends within Falkreath, and eventually you can become a Thane. Really easy way to get some easy gold, and also, to help out the people of Falkreath. Also, I just wanted to point out, while I was just kind of walking around and exploring Falkreath, there was a really weird glitch with Naughty. Her broom was just kind of in her hand. Don't know why that happened, but I just thought it was really funny, really amusing. Also, I wanted to really quickly mention Grave Concoctions, which is the alchemy shop within Falkreath. Now, if you talk to Zadia, she will give you a small quest to make a potion. This can happen in any of the alchemy shops, but just figured I'd point out there's an alchemy shop here. Now, if you want to become a Thane of Falkreath, there are a few quests you can do. We've already shown 2 of them, and you need 3 to become Thane. Now, there's 2 quests that are really easy that you can do. If you head over to Corpse Light Farm and you collect wheat, you can give it to Matthias, and he will become your friend, and then you will have that 3rd quest. Also, if you head on over to Half Moon Mill, and you give some chopped wood to Hurt, he'll become your friend, and that fulfills the requirement. But those are kind of more boring, so I want to look at the last possible way to become Thane. And for that final quest, we need to head over to Dingir's house, which is right next to Corpse Light Farm. And if you talk to him, we can find out that this man is very paranoid. He's actually the formal Jarl of Falkreath, and he is a supporter of the Stormcloaks. And if you help the Stormcloaks, he'll become the new Jarl once the Stormcloaks take over. But for now, if you talk to him, he is convinced that Laud, the blacksmith in Falkreath, is helping the Imperials as some kind of spy, and he wants us to go steal a letter that he saw Laud writing. If we head on over to the house and head on into Laud's house, which we have to lockpick, so do be careful, we can find the note on the table, which is not really a spy note at all. It's just asking for more ore. Well, because Laud is a blacksmith, he needs more ore in order to make weapons and shields and stuff. If we take this letter to Dingir, he will thank us and admit he's a bit disappointed that he wasn't right, but he does say that, hey, the ore is going to weapons for the Imperials. Either way, he'll give us some money, and that fulfills all of our requirements for our 3 quests to become Thane. After that, we can go talk to the Jarl, and he will grant us the title of Thane of Falkreath, and he will also grant us a Housecarl. And since I don't have a companion yet, I'll happily accept Raya as my companion, and she can join us from here on out on our adventures across Skyrim. Worth mentioning, in the room with the Imperial officer, there is a skill book that will increase your block, so pretty darn good. Make sure you give it a quick read. And also, I just wanted to show that while you don't have to be Thane, you can buy the land at Lakeview Manor after you've helped the Jarl with his little bandit problem. Just head to Ninya, and she will help you out and buy the land for 5,000 coin. And just a couple things I wanted to point out. First, if you head on over to Grey Pine Goods, the shop owner's brother, Boland, will kind of make some racist remarks towards you if you're not a Nord, so your race will impact his comments. Now, his brother is actually quite kind and will just sell us no matter what race we are. And then I wanted to talk about what I thought was one of my favorite quests in Skyrim, but it might not be anymore. We'll talk more about that here in a second. But once you become level 10 and you go back to Falkreath, or you arrive for the first time, the Falkreath guards will mention that Laud's dog has gone missing. And if we go talk to Laud, he just says that the dog has gone missing and that he would like him to come back. So he will instruct us to go look for the dog, and after that we can leave Falkreath to go find it. Now also, it's worth mentioning, sometimes the dog will just approach you if you're in the surrounding area, so you don't have to go to Falkreath, but going to Falkreath is a sure way to start the quest. And as we leave the city, we can find Barbas, and this is the dog. And this is what I wanted to mention, that this quest can be incredibly annoying because this dog's pathing is incredibly screwed up. I spent almost 10 minutes following this darn dog across Skyrim. I have this sped up at 10 times, and still, it is a 30-second long clip. Absolutely insane. We entered Helgen, the dog got confused, he started going backwards, I actually thought the game was glitched. I thought it was broken, but anyways, eventually we made our way through Helgen, and then up this hill, and I just thought this was really annoying, and almost killed the quest for me, but I still enjoyed it, I guess. Anyways, he takes us here, to Haemar Shame, which is just east of Helgen, and it's really far away from Falkreath. It's quite the walk. I can see why it took us 10 minutes, because the dog is stupid. And once inside the cave, we'll have to kill numerous vampires. I do have to admit, Barbas is pretty good at killing vampires. As you can see there, he just kind of obliterated that one. And Barbas will run well ahead of us to go kill vampires, so that made it a little bit easy going through this cave, just looting the dead bodies. Now, there isn't a whole ton of special loot in here, which is why I made it fast. However, there is a skill book at the bottom of this little trench that will increase your destruction if you haven't found it yet. So, that's pretty nifty. Now, real quick, I just wanted to point out there is a room that Barbas will run past, completely missing it, and if we go check out the room, there's not much in it. There's just some coffins that it appears the vampires have been sleeping in, along with some pretty good potions, so I just thought it was kind of interesting, and I'd just go ahead and point it out. And there's also a locked chest that will contain random loot, as always. And then as you make your way to the back of the cave, you will find a master vampire, but Barbas actually made quick work of him and all of his followers, so that was really easy, actually, this fight. So thank you very much, puppy. And then this statue is none other than Clavicus Vile. And Clavicus is a Daedric prince, and he is kind of annoyed with his pet dog, Barbas. So if we want to reunite Clavicus and Barbas, we have to go on a quest now for Clavicus to recover his axe. And he'll send us to Rime Rock Burrow, which is really far away from anywhere I've been, so I had to adventure all the way to the other side of the map and make my way there. And I kind of did so not so orthodox, but yeah, just kind of jumping down this cliff in order to get to the entrance of the cave. And once inside, we actually have a pretty straightforward battle. There will be a flame Atronach, which we have to kill, which is pretty easy. Then we have to go over and kill this guy, Sebastian Lord, who has an actually really tragic backstory. His daughter worshipped Hircine and became a werewolf. He begged Clavicus for a cure, and Clavicus gave him an axe to kill his daughter, thus curing her of being a werewolf. Not exactly a very nice cure, but I guess it's a cure nonetheless. Now, before leaving this cave, you want to head to the back room where we can find a conjuration skill book, which I've already found. It doesn't really help me, but it might help you, along with a chest with various loot, and for me, it was pretty good. And then upon returning to Clavicus and giving him the axe, he will give us an option because he's really not so fond of Barbas. So he will tell us that we can either use the axe to kill the dog, and he will gift us the axe, or we can force him to just take the dog still. And personally, I don't like the axe that much. I don't think it's that great of a weapon. And by choosing to reunite them, we will get the Mask of Clavicus Vile. And this mask, I think, is pretty darn good, especially for an early playthrough. So I opted for that because that's what I wanted. And while everyone loves dogs, actually, killing Barbas might be the morally correct decision, because by reuniting them, you are essentially freeing Clavicus, which who knows what kind of havoc and, bad things he'll bring about. But, hey, I'm not so worried about that. More worried about myself surviving in this cruel world at an early level. And then here you can see the mask. I do think it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty scary. So, hey, we'll take it. Also, I almost forgot to mention, there is a chest in here which has a flawed Varla stone, and also some gold and other random loot. So definitely make sure to take a peek inside of that chest. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim, and I hope you learned something interesting, or at least just enjoyed watching me play through Falkreath. It was really fun becoming Thane, and just kind of getting to know the citizens of Falkreath, and familiarizing myself with all of the quests and many things I remember from my childhood. Also, when the sun actually comes out, which is rare, Falkreath has to be one of the most beautiful cities in all of Skyrim. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for another location or future video idea, please post them in the comment section below. And, as always, until next time. Nestled high in the mountains above Falkreath lies Shriekwind Bastion. This dungeon towers over Falkreath. If you ever look around, you'll surely see the entrance just hovering above Falkreath. Hello everyone, this is the Army of Otters, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Shriekwind Bastion, which is a dungeon within Skyrim. And this dungeon, for me at least, has a lot of nostalgia because I remember as a kid when I first came to Falkreath, and I just saw it towering above Falkreath. It's very intimidating, and it looks quite scary. However, it's pretty easy to clear, but maybe it's a bit confusing because there are two entrances. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, as I was approaching, I found out a really weird thing in Skyrim. I never realized this before, but there are wooden carts often just kind of littered around the map. And I found out you can actually interact and push these things, but you cannot pick them up. But you can kind of just toss them around if you just run into them. And I just found it highly amusing. I know most people probably don't care and think I'm pretty weird, but hey, I thought it was pretty cool. Anyways, as we approach Shriekwind Bastion, we will be immediately confronted by a Draugr. I was actually quite startled by this. It made my heart skip a little bit. Don't know why. This is a very common thing in Skyrim. I just, for whatever reason, was not expecting that Draugr to just pop out of there like that. Then there's also a lot of skeletons around this place. Thankfully, skeletons are really easy to kill. And from here, we have this small hut where the skeleton was living with some candles inside. Don't know what purpose it has. And then we have a beautiful view overlooking Falkreath. Now there's one more Draugr just hanging around outside. I shot him with an arrow and he got very, very scared of me. I slowly crept up the stairs and shot him with a second arrow, ending his very tragic life. And of course he didn't have much on him in the way of loot. And then we can actually enter Shriekwind Bastion. Now inside, if you enter from the southern entrance like I did, you will be confronted with a fork. You can go left or right. If you enter from the north, this dungeon is much more linear. So coming from this angle, you kind of have some choices. It's kind of a shortcut. Now as we open the rock, we can find some armor and a steel sword. That may be interesting, some environmental storytelling. Perhaps someone died there. Now, I really didn't know which way to go as I was entering, so I just decided to go right and, stick with it. Going right, we will find an iron door and some kind of like a natural part of the cave. Then we find like a little crypt, and this opens up into a very large chamber. And as I looked down below, I realized I probably went the wrong way, as this was probably taking me out of the dungeon, but I figured to go ahead and keep working with it. In here, there are several skeletons, and using a bow and arrow and some really bad archery skills, I was able to kill all of the skeletons fairly easily. Then I made my way along the path on the upper part, and I found this handle. Upon activating the handle, I activated the depths of hell, but the gate on the other side became open. I crouched my way over. Raya just literally bulldozed her way through the flames with not a care in the world, and upon opening the iron door, we were confronted by a master vampire. This fight proved to be a little bit difficult. Raya was actually almost killed by the vampire, but eventually I was able to put an arrow and finish him off. And then Raya was getting back up. She survived, so that is good. Then we looted his body. Also, in this room, we can find a book that will increase our speech skill, so that's pretty good. And then behind the vampire is this kind of small crypt or chamber with a bunch of urns. And there's also a chest that had a flawed Varla stone in it, so that's pretty good. And then we can make our way up this spiraling staircase. And this takes us obviously to the top of the dungeon where we confront the final boss, which for me was just a restless Draugr. Now I was trying to kind of get a cool shot, and then the Draugr decided to wake up and to attack me, so I attacked him back, and he didn't even get a hit on me. He didn't shout, he didn't do anything. This is a very easy Draugr for this kind of place. Obviously this is leveled, so depending on your level, it will be more difficult. I'm still a very low level, so it's very easy. Also, we can find a word wall, which contains a word of power, Air Elemental Fury. So that's pretty darn good. Then on the Draugr, there was a garnet and gold and some other interesting things. Also, there is a potion on one of these pedestals. Now, I couldn't figure out if these pedestals actually do anything. I tried putting things on them, but nothing really happened. And then we have an exit, which takes us to the Shriekwind Overlook. And this just leads us outside. Obviously, you could use this as a fast travel point to get out of here quickly, but I just wanted to say the view from up here is spectacular. Absolutely beautiful. You get some really beautiful views of Lake Ilinalta and Falkreath. Now, heading back to the entrance from the southern part of Shriekwind Bastion, we decide to go to the left, and then we find a large torture chamber with a vampire's thrall inside that was promptly killed by Raya, which is really good for her. Thank you very much. I wasn't paying attention. At the base of this kind of throne, we have a ruby, along with a flawless ruby. So that's pretty darn good. Kind of mixes in with the blood. This chain activates a fire underneath this cage, absolutely cooking whoever was in there. Kind of a terrible way to frickin' die. Oh my god. And then we come back into this large central chamber, which should be familiar from earlier. We have the dead skeletons that I shot from much earlier. Just kind of laying around. There was one more skeleton that did survive, so I destroyed him. I guess kill? Can you kill a skeleton? Or is it already dead? I don't know. Anyways, eventually you'll find this large room, kind of a natural room with some caverns in it. And there's kind of this middle pedestal with 3 handles on it. If you activate these handles, they will activate different doors within this room. This first lever or handle here activated this hidden wall on the left. You can see it opening as I absolutely fail at killing the skeleton with a bow and arrow. But inside of this small room, we can just find some armor, so not bad. I did take it because it is better than what I was using. Activating the next handle, and it will open another kind of hidden secret door. I honestly thought this one was going to open one of the iron doors. I did not see the hidden door, and then I took it and found more armor. Finally, I activated the last handle, and the door on the staircase opened up. The other door did not open up, so I knew there had to be another way to open up the door, and inside of this room, we see the other way. There's a locked chest, which contains random loot, and above this chest is 3 chains. Now, the middle chain just opens the door behind us into this room. The chain on the right opens the entrance, and the chain on the left opens the main door, the door which we came in. However, if you're doing this from the northern entrance of Shriekwind Bastion, the left chain will be important for you to progress through the rest of the dungeon. Now in this room, there's some hanging moss. Also, you can kind of see the outside with some light shining in through what appears to be some kind of well. And then this opens up into some kind of large central chamber. And there's a lot of blood and skulls on this kind of thing, maybe used for sacrifices of humans or animals. And there's some potions and stuff in here. There's also a chest underneath this kind of statue, which had some gold and healing potions in it. Also over here, we have this closet with all kinds of boots inside of it. And these boots are actually pretty cool because we can get some pleated shoes, which are quite rare within Skyrim itself. And also we can get a pair of fur-lined boots, which is also very rare within Skyrim. So inside this little closet, we can get 2 pairs of rare boots. So pretty cool. You can add it to a collection of shoes if you have one. And then this opens back up into that main central chamber. And at the bottom, we can find what appears to be some kind of trap door. But if you actually activate the handle, you'll notice that this cage doesn't open. Instead, this central platform below us raises up, and you are stabbed by spears that come flying out of the wall. Quite scary. Then we follow the chamber more through a crypt. There's a skeever, there's some skeletons, and we can come down here and we can see a bandit tragically met their end on this kind of trap. we have what appears to be some kind of sacrificial table and some, skeletal remains on it. If you activate this chain, it just activates the trap, raising the platform into the spikes, obviously. Then we have an iron door that is locked, and behind it was just a vampire, and we kill her pretty easy. And then inside of here, we just have what appears to be a kind of classroom or some kind of planning room. Not sure what it is, but there is a chest which had some minor random loot in it. And then we have the exit to the North Shriekwind Bastion, and we are back outside. And from here, this is the more proper way to enter the area. It's the more linear way, at least. But hey, I went the south way because for me, that's the most obvious way to go since it is overlooking Falkreath so prominently. Then up here, inside of this little bowl, I imagine it would be used for fire or something, we have some ancient Nord boots, a potion, and an ancient Nord war axe. And once again, ancient Nord boots are actually kind of rare within Skyrim itself, so hey, you might want to pick them up and add them to your collection of boots. If we travel even further up the northern part of Shriekwind Bastion, we will find a locked chest at the top underneath this kind of archway, which will have random loot. For me, there was a potion of pickpocketing, which I think is pretty good. And from up here, we have some pretty beautiful views of Lake Ilinalta. And there you guys have it, Shriekwind Bastion. Now this is, as I said earlier, this is a location that is very nostalgic for me, so I'm very fond of this dungeon. Even if it's pretty easy, and even if the best loot inside is just some pairs of boots, I still think this is a very fun dungeon to complete. I really love the design and how, instead of going further down into it to progress through the dungeon, you go higher and higher up. And the view from the outlook is absolutely magnificent. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. I had a lot of fun making this video and exploring this dungeon. If you guys have any recommendations for a future location or just future video idea, please post them in the comments section below. There's a huge shout out to everyone who's been watching these Skyrim videos. I have a lot of fun making them, doing my best to kind of juggle 3 games, so I hope you guys are enjoying the content. And always, I am welcome to your advice or your criticism. I read every comment, so please let me know what you think. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out South Skybound Watch, along with North Skybound Watch and Skybound Watch Pass. In other words, we are checking out Skybound Watch. Who would have guessed? Now, this location is pretty remote, and I think it's really easy to miss. It's in the mountains just above Helgen, and you can actually kind of see the location here with this very beautiful shot of the moon. Now, here is the actual location of the Northern Passage, Skybound North Watch, and then we have the South Skybound Watch. Again, it's near Helgen. If you come towards the eastern entrance of Helgen and then follow my path, I will show you how to get there. Kind of turn left after following the road for a bit, and you'll find this nice little walking trail through the woods, and eventually you're going to find this wisp, and you're going to want to take out the wisp mother. Kind of difficult for me because I'm a lower level, but I was able to power through it just barely. But hey, we did it just barely. And then as we approach the South Skybound Watch, we will find a very badly decayed tower that has been pretty much reduced to ruins. Now, if you go in through the door, we'll enter the pass, but real quick, at the top, there is a locked chest with random loot, so definitely make sure to check that out. Also, on the other side, you can jump across, but there's just a steel helmet here, so really not that interesting. Inside of the pass, we will find various bandits, so be ready for some pretty small but yet pretty easy fights. Make your way down the spiral staircase, and we will find our first set of bandits. Be an awesome person like me and not know how to fight with melee weapons because all you play is freaking Fallout. But eventually I was able to kill the bandits thanks to the help of Raya? Anyways, then there's a chest in this room that is booby-trapped, but definitely still loot it because it has some pretty good loot inside of it. Just be cautious of the arrows that'll shoot you. Eventually you'll come to these large iron doors, and there's a spider inside of this room. However, the spider cannot get through the door, so you can easily kill the spider if you come from the southern entrance. And then as we continue our way through, we'll find another large pair of iron doors, and then a locked chest. Unlock the chest to get some random loot. Pretty good for me, and there's also some potions and stuff on the table. Then on this bookshelf, we have a skill book that'll increase our block skill, which is pretty good, along with some coin purses and stuff like that. Then as we make our way up this kind of staircase, we will find more bandits. Be careful, there is a trap below you, or above you, and you can actually use it to kill the bandits if you're smart, unlike me. Then as we make our way outside of this door, we will find the North Skybound Watch. This part is much more developed than its southern brother, and inside of this room up here, we can find some more bandits. So open the door, kill them, and take them out. You know, pretty easy, just, putting arrows in their freaking chest. Also worth mentioning, over here we have this pedestal. This is a part of the quest, Destruction Ritual Spell, but you need level 90 Destruction Magic in order to activate this quest with Feralda. So just be aware that you will need to visit this place during the Destruction Ritual Spell quest. Then over here we have a locked chest, which again, like every other almost chest in Skyrim, will contain random loot. If you come out the other end of that room, we will find a staircase, and this will lead you to the main road, kind of near Haymar's Shame and the Falkreath Stormcloak camp. Now, as if you come back down towards the entrance, there's a large cliff. You're not really supposed to climb up over here, but either way, we can get some very beautiful views of Falkreath and Whiterun. We can see Lake Ilinalta off in the distance, and right below us, we can see the village of Riverwood, which I have a feeling we will be exploring here, shortly. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. I had a lot of fun checking out this location, mainly because I had no clue it existed. It's really cool that Skybound Watch has these kind of two brother or sister locations, north and south. Who knows what it would have been used for? Perhaps in the old days it was just used as a lookout point for some empire or watching for dragons. Who knows, but I thought it was really cool, and I had a lot of fun exploring it. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys have any recommendations for a future location, future video, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Once you've escaped the dragon attack on Helgen and begin your epic adventure across Skyrim, you will be greeted with some magnificent and breathtaking views of Skyrim, and across from us we can see Bleak Falls Barrow. As you begin your journey, you'll be greeted with random wildlife. This fox was murdered in front of me by something I don't know, but we had to fight off a flame Atronach, and we continued our way down the mountain. Now, many players, when they first play Skyrim, might encounter Embershard Mine. Now, for me, this is a location I was not very familiar with. I always just ran past it and never paid much attention to it, but it is perhaps the first location that many Skyrim players ever discovered. Hello everyone, this is the Army of Otters, and welcome to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Embershard Mine, along with the surrounding area a little bit, mainly the Guardian Stones. These are both locations that many Skyrim players will be familiar with, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, Embershard Mine is just north of Helgen, and is just below Riverwood, so obviously it's in the very beginning of the game, or at least the beginning of the starting area. As we enter the mine, we'll immediately be encountered with a trap. Be careful because this will cause a lot of rocks in front of us to come crashing down. Quite an ingenious trap on the part of the bandits that now inhabit this mine. Obviously, a lot of Skyrim's mines are no longer in use for whatever reason, and they've been overrun with whatever creatures, or in this case, bandits. But thankfully, bandits are pretty easy to kill. Now, we do have some pretty intricate kind of mechanisms in this mine, as we will see. Now, as we make our way down this mine shaft, we will find a skeleton, a coin purse, and a tattered journal next to it. Now, this tattered journal talks about what we can assume is a former mine worker. He talks about hearing noises in the mine shaft, about the earth shifting above him, and that he's becoming ever more paranoid of a cave-in. He says he might give up drinking because of his paranoia, and we can see that his paranoia was well placed, as he did apparently meet his end because of a cave-in. Now down below where the bandits were, we can find a small lake, along with a pickaxe and an iron ore vein, and there are 8 iron ore veins in this mine which we can mine. Then over here we can find a lever, and upon activating the lever, we'll find these 2 little bridges come flying down, and they mate perfectly in the middle. Quite the engineering by whoever designed it. Then we have 2 bandits that come running out because they are suspicious, and we can kill them with the help of Raya. Then, as we come into the next part of the mine, we can find this little window where we could take all of the gold if we wanted, but decided to go pick the lock first and see what or why that window is there. I don't really understand the point of that window. It might make sense if there was a bandit there to act as a guard, but there isn't, so it's just kind of there. Inside of this locked room, we can find a chest which contains random loot. It also had a spell tome for me, Clairvoyance. And also on our right, we had another spell tome, Clairvoyance, and then some gold on the table. So I guess I can sell the other spell book since I literally just learned that other spell. Across from that cell, we have another locked area, but there's nothing in here besides a bucket. In Fallout 4, a bucket would be most useful though. As we make our way to the next section of the mine, we are greeted with a very beautiful scene. We have a large waterfall, and then kind of a swinging bridge across the middle of this area and a very large part of this mine shaft. And at the base of this room, we can find an iron smith, and obviously these bandits are using this smith in order to make weapons, or obviously probably iron weapons, since this seems to be an iron mine. Over here on the table, there are some iron ingots on the workbench, but over here on the table, we can find a smithing book, which will increase your smithing, if you haven't found that book yet, like I already have. Then real quick, I wanted to point out there is a coin purse near the entrance to this section, next to some bed rolls. Then there's a bandit that was trying to shoot me with arrows, but failed miserably. My archery skills are not the best, but they're better than that bandit, so that makes me happy. Then in this kind of tucked away room, we have a table with various jewels and a lot of gold. There was also a chest that contained random loot and some more gold. Gold is always a welcome sight. Here is that large waterfall from earlier, and now the dead, terrible archery bandit. And now there was a platform beneath the waterfall, and I wasn't sure how to get there, so I just jumped off the edge of the cliff and landed on the platform. Picked the lock, found some gold, lock picks, and a portion of stamina. I found out there is an entrance to the platform. I'm just blind. It's literally right next to the bridge. After that, we come to the end of the mine, where we can find the back entrance to the mine. This is an unmarked entrance, but you could, in theory, enter through this way if you knew about it and maybe kind of attack the bandits from behind. Here's the location on the minimap. Then if we just head west of Embershard Mine, we can find the Guardian Stones. I'm sure most players are familiar with this location. This is one of the first locations I remember as well that kind of dictates your playthrough of Skyrim. You can choose the Thief Stone, the Mage Stone, or the Warrior Stone, with each stone increasing your skill learning by 20% with skills in those categories. And I think most players are probably familiar with this. It's really at the beginning of the game, but I just wanted to cover all of the locations in the game, so here it is. Now from this location, you get a very beautiful view of Lake Ilinalta, and then the White River as it makes its way towards Riverwood. And that is pretty much all there is to this area, a very early area that many players will discover early on. However, I do think the mine is a bit easy to overlook or to miss. I know I certainly overlooked it until I was trying to get 100 smithing in my previous playthrough. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Unexplored Skyrim. If you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we're going to be checking out Redoran's Retreat. This is a cave that is just slightly northwest of Whiterun, populated by some bandits and a dog, and it's a location that is mainly visited for various Radiant quests, such as the miscellaneous quest to retrieve Omrin's sword, who is in Whiterun, but that was not for me. But this location does have something else of interest, so let's check it out. Now, as I said, Redoran's retreat is just to the northwest of Whiterun. Here you can see it on the map. Pretty easy to get to if you just start at Whiterun. Now, as you approach, you have a very kind of cool cave. Kind of looks scary. And inside it appears to be some kind of old mine. Obviously, it is not in use anymore. Just kind of a hideout for some bandits. Now, inside we have a dog. And when I killed the dog, the other bandit kind of got alerted. But I was able to sneak attack both of them and kill them pretty easily. Now, it appears that these guys have a lot of mead, as you can see here. Big party going on. Actually, it was ale, not mead. And then you can obviously loot their dead body. And over here we have a locked chest, along with some golden arrows on the table. So, pretty okay loot, always willing to take some gold. Then as we move on to the next chamber, there are 2 bandits in here, and one of them jump scared me.
Hi.
Okay. When I was recording this, I was really confused about where that bandit was, and he was just standing right next to me, just staring at me for some reason. After that, we have a bandit chief, and after kind of running around, like Ring Around the Rosie, I was able to kill him and take some pretty good loot on his body. Over here is a chest, and in here we can find treasure map 4. And on this map, we can see that there is a treasure that is south of Whiterun, located just past a windmill. So we'll have to make our way towards that part of the map, but for now there's also a skill book in here that'll raise our sneak skill, which is so pretty handy. Then after that we can head to Pelagia Farm, which is just south of Whiterun. Now this farm is innocent enough, but if you line up the windmill just perfectly, we can kind of match it to the treasure map and then make our way up the mountain to get the treasure map. I have this at 4 times speed, so if you need to know where the treasure is, you can follow this video. I just want to say, in Skyrim, I never really paid much attention to these treasure maps before, because there's just so much golden stuff in Skyrim, and usually the treasure that you get out of it is mediocre at best, as you can see here. However, I do really love the treasure map element. You kind of have to use your detective skills and use the environment to figure out where these treasures are. So it's definitely something I'm having a lot of fun doing this time around in my playthrough of Skyrim. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this very quick, kind of fast video of Unexplored Skyrim. What do you guys think? Did you guys ever use the treasure maps in Skyrim, or just kind of forget about them like I used to? Either way, thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for future videos or future ideas, please post them in the comment section below, and as always, until next time.